It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy Ihnatko's here. Alex Lindsay's here. Jason Snell's here with a binder full of colors because, yes, it's once again time for the 6 Colors Quarterly Results Report. Lots of graphs. Apple had a very mixed quarter. Is it good news for Apple lovers? That's the question we'll answer. Also coming up, a very weird email from Tim Cook that might have gotten Apple in trouble with the Labor Relations Board, and some admissions from the Apple chip designers about why Apple gaming may still take some time. It's all coming up, that and a lot more next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 856, recorded Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. Maybe not. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by ACI Learning. Tech is one industry where the opportunities outpace growth, especially in cybersecurity. 1/3 of information security jobs require a cybersecurity cert. To maintain your competitive edge across audit, IT, and cybersecurity readiness, visit go.acilearning.com/twit. And by ZocDoc. When you're not feeling your best at just trying to hold it together, finding great care shouldn't take up all your energy. Just go to ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. Download the ZocDoc app free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. Many available within 24 hours. Thanks for listening to this show. As an ad-supported network, we are always looking for new partners with products and services that will benefit our qualified audience. Are you ready to grow your business? Reach out to advertise@twit.tv and launch your campaign now. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Apple. And thank you, Apple, for keeping your quarterly results, your year-end results, for a week where you have nothing else to do, because it keeps us. There was actually somebody in our TWiT forums at twit.community who said, when there's no news, you just shouldn't do a show. you should just, he said, last week's show was so boring. Just don't do a show. And I said, well, we could, but that would break a lot of things. Jason Snell, laughing loudly.
We've always got something going on,
There's
right?
always
we
something.
We can figure something out.
We find something to talk about.
Apple results came out.
We got color graphs, thanks to Mr. Snell.
We got charts and graphs.
6colors.com.
What else do you want?
Andy Ihnatko's here. GBH's Andy Ihnatko. He's a Boston fan. We got his Boston Red Sox hat on there.
I'm not taking it personally, but not exactly feeling the love from that comment. I mean, we're your Apple/MacBook iPhone/iPad pals that you like to talk to every week. But okay, it's fine.
That's kind of what I said to the guy. I said, "Hey,
close to Valentine's Day too. Fine.
I said, "Hey, here's an idea.
We're gonna fight on Valentine's Day.
Here's an idea. If you don't like it, there's the door." Also, no, it was nicer than that. Also here, Alex Lindsay from 090.media and officehours.global, and I owe you a big debt of gratitude. Thank you, Alex, for that.
What did I do?
Great Midjourney video you gave.
Oh, was that okay?
Oh, yeah, it was so cool. Okay. I've asked Alex, and actually, maybe I guess we could put it on the show, but you can just watch it. I guess we don't need to add it. It's a podcast. You could watch it on Ask the Tech Guys from last week, and I bet you we turned it into a TWiT bit, did we? Yeah. So make it a TWiT bit. That way, Alex did about 7 minutes on how he uses Midjourney to generate amazing art.
7 minutes, 57 seconds.
So I guess it's really closer to 8
Closer to 8,
minutes.
yes.
Yeah. Really great bit, and thank you for doing that. And
I'm good.
I know behind the scenes it was a little bit of an arduous journey, but well done.
Yeah, it was fine. It was good. It was all good. I think I kept on going, I'll record it one more time, and I was like, okay, I have to send it, or they're not going to have it. So I just sent
Did you redo it each time? Oh man,
yeah, I have a tendency to redo things.
I know
that's why it's why I do a live show. It's why I do live shows and I don't do post shows, because wow, do I get caught up in a cycle. Like if I have to do a 3-minute video, it might take me a week, but I can do 2 hours a day with no problem.
Some writers say that the word processing is the worst thing that happened to writing, because now they edit obsessively and never finish. Yeah. And it's the case with when you're. I'm the same way. That's why everything we do is live, because I want live to life to hard drive or whatever.
Yeah, I was thinking about it when I was recording. I was like, this would have been a lot when the original plan was I would just come on early and you and I would talk about it, and I was like, and then it would be done.
Right. All right, next time we'll do that. I apologize.
No. It was good. It was I
came out great.
I figured out a bunch of things. Yeah,
it's on the Ask the Tech Guy show. It will be a TWiT down the road. Thank you for doing that, Alex. I appreciate it. So, Apple did put out its earnings, and it seemed like a kind of a mixed bag. But I think we have to go to the charts to really understand what happened.
Of course. Go to the charts.
Let's go to the charts.
Look, those charts don't make themselves. I work hard in the chart mines all day making those charts.
I don't know why you chose this as your thumbnail, Jason, but you're looking both of you are looking kind of, anticipatorially weird.
That's the algorithm. I was lazy and I didn't.
Oh, you didn't do a thumbnail?
So
there you go. Jason and Dan Morin from
that's about
$6.
Right. That's the mood. That's your Apple results mood this quarter, which is yeah. Well, I mean, I think more than ever, this is a Rorschach test of how people want to view Apple. I do that thing.
It sure felt like that because some people said, they beat earnings, beat expectations. Oh, it was the worst quarter in 25 years. It was like I couldn't figure it out.
I'm amazed. So I watch CNBC like literally 30 minutes a quarter, and it's the 30 minutes before Apple results come out because I just am fascinated because so many people on financial networks and in financial journalism are kind of like they're either in the bag for Apple or they're in the bag against Apple. Like there's one or the other, and you can see that they're like, no matter what happens, one of them's going to say it's good news and one of them's going to say it's bad news. And it's a pretty good gig. But the truth is, both of these things can be true. Revenue was down 8% year over year, which it doesn't happen very often that Apple's revenue goes down. But it was also Apple's second best revenue quarter of all time.
Yeah. So they had a really good quarter in 2022, and that's the problem. And so $117 billion in 3 months seems so bad compared to
$30 billion in profit. $30 billion in profit.
OMG.
Yeah.
Again, besting every quarter except the year over year.
Except for that. But what freaks people out is that, iPhone sales were down 8% and year over year revenue was down 5%. The truth is Apple said they faced, this is the word they said it 11 times in an hour on their phone call with analysts, the word headwinds. When you talk about the headwinds,
Tim Cook even said, I had the wind in my face.
The macro headwinds were just macro. So the headwinds, I mean, the best way to look at this is Apple is right on one level. Like iPhone sales look down, but they actually were flat. If you look at how many they sold, what was down was revenue in US dollars because of headwinds, which is their code word for foreign exchange. So basically, if you're standing
ridiculous.
If you're standing in China and you're looking at Chinese currency and you look at how many you sold last year at this time and this year at this time for the holiday quarter, sales were up. But if you converted that number, which they probably didn't convert the actual currency, but if you converted that number last year to US dollars and converted it this year to US dollars, it looks down because the dollar got stronger. So, it's one of those things I don't want to poo-poo it because there is softening here. There's softening in services. There's softening in wearables. There's a bunch of places where this was not a record quarter, right? And if you're obsessed with growth like Wall Street is for lots of good reasons, you look at it and go, oh, it's a little soft. Are they not growing anymore? But I think if you take another step back without going off the cliff, you look at it and you say, it was tough because they had the foreign exchange stuff. They're also in year 2 of the Slack or year 3 of the Slack period for the iPhone because they only really massively update the iPhone every 3rd year. And you can see that there's a cycle that happens over a 3-year period where that new iPhone is a hit. And then everything just kind of tails off and is flat. And then it comes back when they do a brand new iPhone. So I think, question one that my wife always asks me is Apple going to go out of business? My answer is no.
No.
They're doing okay. That $30 billion, you can take that to the bank or stuff it in the mattresses, whatever you want. And then individually, the iPhone being flat, they didn't have their factory that made the iPhone Pro for a large period of the quarter. So I actually think that it being flat in sales and down in currency, basically based on conversions, is the best possible scenario. I thought it would be way worse. And the iPad had literally its best quarter in 9 years. So there's upside too.
What is it? Mark Twain said there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. And when you look, you can, so for instance, two different graphs about services revenue. You look at this graph and you go, wow, I guess services did really well. And then you look at this graph and oh, I guess it wasn't that good a year. And it just shows you that it really depends on the prism through which you're looking.
Right. Yeah.
So let's not focus too much on raw numbers, and let's kind of try to give people really the high level top line information that makes a difference. For instance, when I see year over year Mac revenue change down 29%, I go, but there's it's not that.
There's well, the iPad and the Mac both, because the iPad looks great and the Mac looks terrible. And the truth is, when you're doing year over year quarter, part of the trick is you got to ask yourself what happened last year and what happened this year. Right. So the iPad, they didn't do an iPad update last year, and in fact, they had a factory shutdown, so they couldn't sell as many as demanded. Yeah. So it was a bad year last year, and this year they came out with the new 10th generation iPad, and they came out with the new M2 iPad Pro, and they could make as many as people wanted, and so of course they did well. On the Mac side, last year they came out with the MacBook Pro. That was the first Apple Silicon MacBook Pro, and they had it as many as they could sell, right? They could make them that fast. This year, they didn't release any Macs in that quarter at all. And so is it a surprise that Mac sales were down year over year? Right. No. Is that the whole story, and could there be some softness there? Yeah, absolutely. But you got to go past that, like the year over year, because the year over year often is what they always call the compare in the jargon of Wall Street. It could be a tough compare, it could be an easy compare, basically. And that's what happened with the Mac and the iPad. The Mac sales are not as bad as they look, and the iPad sales aren't as good as they look. Right. That's the truth of it.
So there are a couple of things to note. This is the end of their fiscal year. So you're going to see those year-over-year comparisons. Normally, you just see quarter to quarter.
Yeah, but no, this is their first financial quarter. They actually start with the holiday quarter. So these are all just against the year-ago quarter.
So they do this every time that year. You could tell how much I pay attention to this. So they do this every year. And the other problem,
because it's so seasonal, you can't compare it sequentially. You have to compare holiday quarters to holiday quarters.
Rolling averages kind of thing. The other thing is, unfortunately, in the American economy, public companies are held to a quarterly result that the market really rewards or punishes them for. Even though no business operates in a 3-month cycle, that's still something they have to report. And so we're looking at these 3 months, and they're not. I mean, honestly, that's not what's important to Apple. So when you're looking at these numbers, these are numbers for investors. These are numbers for the stock market. These are not numbers for us as users. It's hard to read these tea leaves and say, oh, Apple's struggling or doing well.
And then people will say, like, well, why does Apple play the game if they don't have to? I mean, why do they have to, do that? And a lot of companies look at opportunities to not report more than they have to. But the problem is if your stock, and Apple is able to bump that up a little bit because they do a lot of buybacks, they do a lot of dividends, they do things that keep investors happy, and that keeps the stock going up. And when we say, well, the investors don't matter, well, a large part of their investors are their employees.
Right.
You have to remember that all those stock options.
It's compensation.
And so when your stock is sliding every year, employees start looking for, they're looking for the next thing. So you want them to constantly feel like they got in low and are going to go out high. And so it is more important.
That's because that's kind of contrary to a well-run business, except it's an important part of a well-run business that's public. It's why Steve Jobs did not want to go public for the longest time, right?
Yeah, and you're getting the employees though. You have to always remember you're getting them at somewhat of a discount. I mean, they're getting paid a lot of money, but they're getting at somewhat of a discount over what the market rate because they're getting stock.
Yeah. Steve said, I don't want to go public. I don't want to have a stock because I don't want employees to be sitting there all day looking at their net worth. And I understand that, having at one point had some shares, and you do, it's not unusual to go down the halls in Silicon Valley and see people with little stock tickers on their screen.
Especially if it does something, if you see the news that, you dropped by 12%, that's something that hurts when you're, if you had a lot of stock,
But it's all paper, right? It's all paper.
It is.
So iPhone quarterly revenue went up as a percentage of total revenue. It was going down closer to half. It's now 56%. It's a big part of their revenue.
Holiday quarter, right? Like
Yeah.
it's surprising how seasonal even the
It's so
iPhone
seasonal.
is, but
Yeah.
it really is. There are a lot. It comes out in the fall, and then there's also holiday buying, and that's why it hurt them, I think, so much to have that thing that we talked about when they announced it. They
couldn't make
warned
'em.
that they weren't the factory that makes their most important segment of their most important product shut down, and they couldn't fulfill demand. And the mystery question is, of course, what happened to those people, right? Did they buy an iPhone, a cheaper iPhone? Did they wait, or did they go and buy a different phone, or did they say, I'm just not going to upgrade this year? Because there's no way to really measure like lost sales. I think some of them will just roll into the next quarter, and Apple will benefit from that, but not all of them, right? And that's you always want to just sell it. If somebody wants to buy your product, you should have it ready to sell, and they didn't.
Or the next year, like a lot of times people make a decision now that Apple is in this kind of constant pattern of being able to have, that's this September. So if you look at it, you go, that wasn't that much different than my last phone or the phone that I have. Like, I don't see any new features. Then you're oftentimes not waiting for a quarter. You're just waiting for the next year. You're like, I'm going to keep this phone. The smart people, I mean, like you either buy it, like make a decision, buy it in October, enjoy the glow of the year. And then, or you just wait until the next year unless you break it, or something like that.
That's why rumors of a iPhone Ultra coming out this year or next are so interesting, because you really have to provoke an iPhone user to upgrade at this point. You have to give them something that is so radically different from what's in their pocket right now that it really does push them to upgrade. It used to be that people were kind of on a 2-year or even a 3-year upgrade cycle. Now I'm seeing more and more people that look, so long as my phone is still working, so long as I haven't dropped into the toilet yet, I'm not going to replace this until it actually breaks. It's hard to advise people on, do you have a working phone? Yes. Are you happy with it? Yes. Okay, then don't worry about upgrading right now.
Services were good. That's not seasonal, right? Services is a year. I mean, that's one of the reasons Apple likes it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they would say that because they don't adjust your monthly fee with currency, that they got hit hard by currency here. I think the truth with services is they used to have explosive growth there, and it's still growing every quarter, but it's not growing as fast as it used to. And that's a question of like, what else do they have, right? Like, obviously it's a focus for them. So what other services, what other methods do they have of getting more revenue out of everybody? They boasted about the fact that they're at 2 billion activations, basically. It's 2 billion active users of devices, Apple devices, that are currently being used.
That's
and
Mac,
that's a record.
iPad, and iPhone all together.
Yeah, it's everything put together. And that does mean it's double counting. But the point there that they're trying to make to the Wall Street types is ecosystem, and services was where you see it most directly, which is if you have 2 billion devices in use, that's 2 billion devices that you can sell add-on services to. And we have discussed and will discuss for probably ad infinitum the wisdom of Apple pivoting so hard into services. But if you're looking just at the services line, like, that's always going to be the question is, are you growing your existing services, and do you have new services that are coming along that you can add to the pot in order to keep that number bubbling? Because Wall Street loves that number because it just keeps growing.
Yeah, especially because when you compare it to companies like particularly Google, where they're still dealing with the fact that they're making about 82%, I'm remembering from last week's call, 82% of their revenue from digital advertising. That is a lot of money to be making from one extremely, particularly for Google, extremely volatile revenue source. So actually seeing that wedge of the pie for iPhone get smaller and smaller is one of the best things that anybody who is concerned about the health of Apple could ever see, because their sales of iPhones is kind of the only thing that Apple is doing, or sales of hardware rather, that is bulletproof from new regulation, from government orders that you're going to have to break up this part of your business, that you're making too much money from this part of the segment. It's a really, really good sign that you like to see if you're a fan of Apple.
And, and I think overall, what you want to keep on looking at that graph is just how they're obviously working at making it more and more even. So it's not just it's not just services of the phone, but how do we just keep building out each one of these so that they start looking like all smaller, equal parts of the pie. And that's just really just prudent business, to do that. And it's really hard to do. And you can see that Google has a hard time doing it. They try, they make lots of new things. But if you've ever been to a Google ad event, you know who has all the money, like who pays for everything. So yeah, it's Google still and Google it's an incredible. I mean, until they get regulated, it's an incredible model. But regulation is, and we saw what ATT did to other companies that have been highly dependent on one thing. Is it really slammed them harder than I think most people think.
Yeah. Particularly, I mean, Google is under two really, really big DOJ lawsuits. The thing on search is probably not going to amount to anything, but oh boy, if you've read the complaint that the government has against Google for their their anti-competitive, antitrust violations on their ad business, it is like a laundry list of, if you want to become the most antitrust violating company in the world, do these 8 things in a row. And the government documented, well, I'll be darned, they've done all 8 of these things really, really emphatically well. So yeah, you don't want that 82% of your business coming from a business that you are probably going to get handcuffed for very, very soon.
Would they like the profit line to be a nice, smooth curve up? They probably would. It's so, I mean, okay, so they made $10 billion a month instead of $12 billion a month. They're doing fine, kids. They're doing just fine.
This is why so many of these reports are so like the gloom and doom that Jason talked about analysts before the reports come out. We're not talking about, oh, they lost money this quarter, or oh my goodness, they're trending downwards. Like, no, the rate at which they're making an ungodly amount of money is slowing down. They're still making an ungodly amount of money, but they thought that they would be an otherworldly godly amount of money by this quarter. Unfortunately, it was only ungodly. It's like, oh my goodness, why are we worried? Why are we considering this as a downturn? Why are we dumping the stock based on the fact that they still have the ability to basically thumb their nose at almost any one government's ability to control or limit their power upon a terrified populace?
And yet, put yourself in the mindset of investors. It's been such a great ride. They're always looking over their shoulder going, when is this going to end? I mean, no company is on top forever, but I don't see an end in sight.
I think a great education that I had about how Wall Street works, right? Because there's a great result and then the stock goes down and you're like, well, wait a second, isn't the stock price a reward for your announcement? And the answer is no, the stock price is a futures market, right? It is what happens next. And if you make a huge amount of money, but you don't meet the expectations of the market, your stock will go down because they thought you'd do better than you did. Is that fair? Well, no, but it's not a measure of how you're doing. It is a measure of like, what's the future. I find some of these Apple bears on CNBC and other places amusing because they seem, I don't know what their game is. I don't know what their plan is. Maybe they're just like, one of these days Apple's going to step in it. But like the iPhone, and now we see with services, the ability of Apple to create this ecosystem where people who buy an iPhone just keep paying the money over time, plus keep buying iPhones. That is I said on that video that I did with Dan, it is a machine that makes money. That's what it is. It is an enormous machine that makes money. And when you make $30 billion of profit in a quarter, in 3 months, like, you're doing okay. We can argue about the fringes and the details, but even if the iPhone was a decaying product, which I don't think it is, I think it's at the end of this sort of cycle where the latest iPhones were kind of sleepy because they were like the last 2 iPhones, and we're about to enter a cycle where there'll probably be new iPhones and those sales will surge again. But like, the bottom line is the iPhone alone, let alone the iPad and the Mac, combined with the services revenue, that is just the gift that keeps on giving. And, I think Apple's got so much momentum. Now I'm sounding like one of those people on CNBC. I think they got so much momentum, Leo. They could just keep going and going and going. But it's true. The iPhone is that successful and that powerful that Apple has learned how to harness that power and make even more money
from it than they used to. And the services, of course, bring you back to lock you further into the hardware. Right. Because you're all of these things you're doing, and it becomes, just something that you can't, it just gets harder and harder to think about. Like I have an Android phone and I use it, but when I open it up, it doesn't have any of the services that I'm used to having.
Yeah. So I just bought the new S23 so I can take a look at it. And I mean, it can't be a daily driver for me because and this is sad because I'd like it to be, but I'm so locked into Apple's stuff. I can't abandon it, and it's worked quite well for them. Is there, you could look at Google and say, well, there's looming threats from government regulation and from Microsoft's and ChatGPT making Bing be an AI version of Google, and you can talk about threats. Facebook, good Lord, nothing but. But are there any threats to Apple's hegemony?
Long term, sure. I mean, that's why they spend so much money.
That's why
they spend so much money on VR and AR and stuff like that.
I understand they want the next thing, but what's going to do people think we will stop having phones?
I think honestly, I think that's what the VR AR thing is, a hedge against what would replace the iPhone. Because I think even Apple understands that as long as they keep doing a decent job with the iPhone, this will keep going forever until there's a replacement.
Until there's
for the
something
iPhone.
Besides the phone. And what would that be? I mean, I don't think we have the technology. I think that's what Apple's realizing is we don't have the technology to make something to replace the phone.
20 years from now.
Well, but the problem is that doing AR and VR is really, really hard, and it takes billions and billions of dollars to do, and you can't. And if you see you're behind, you're done. What Apple needs to do is, that's why Microsoft got into HoloLens. That's why Oculus.
Yeah, but here's the good news: all these companies are dumping it. Right? Microsoft's getting out of the business.
No. Microsoft actually released something saying to correct that, saying, "Oh no, here's our commitment to HoloLens." Facebook, Meta also had something posting saying that here's why we're still committed to this.
That's I think BS. I don't buy it for a minute. They lost 13. They lost 13. Meta lost $13 billion on this last year. $10 billion the year before. You can't lose tens of billions of dollars every year forever.
Unless if you have a crazy CEO who is unstoppable and has not been thrown out by the stockholders or the board yet. Yeah. I think that so long as he still thinks he's committed to this, he will still keep those purse strings open. And because he has founder money, not just founder money, he has like the 1990s style of we founded this company so that it's almost impossible to kick out a founder without his
but he's scrambling because, to be honest, Meta is challenged on a lot of areas. I mean.
I agree. I agree.
So
100%.
that, as long as it's like Google, they've got the money machine with search advertising, so they can kind of try stuff. And Meta's got this, the blue page, the Facebook, but that's kind of starting to look a little. You can see why Meta's running as fast as they can. Yeah. Meanwhile, Microsoft's saying, yeah, maybe this will take off, maybe not. What's the good news? Microsoft says no matter who makes it, they're going to have to run on Azure. So let's really make our cloud be strong, and then we will provide services to whoever ends up being the AR, VR, metaverse winner. Apple is saying, well, the iPhone someday is going to be replaced by something. I guess it's got to be something you wear. Right? What else could it be? Or an implant, a brain implant.
Or if it's on your wrist, they're headed down that path. If
they've got that.
In your ears, they got it. If it's on your eyes, they're working on it.
No, they're working on wearables.
That's what they're thinking.
But it is interesting that Apple is still hewing to their roots, where every single big project they've got going that we're tracking, it's still all about creating consumer appealing hardware. It's still about let's buy this piece of hardware for AR VR. Hey, let's buy this car. The services are doing great. The App Store is doing great. It's the only area in which Apple will probably get spanked pretty hard by international regulators, but it's not necessarily necessarily what the whole company is hinged on. Meanwhile, Google stays close to their roots. Microsoft stays close to their roots, as they are both companies that sling bits around. The fact that they're slinging bits on servers instead of on floppies is almost immaterial, because they are, whatever apparatus that they created for themselves that they've been running on for the past 2 decades, they can continue to run on that same apparatus because they're still writing software. Facebook, however, they are gonna get spanked so hard because they have to be a cookie company that starts making diesel lubricants. I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you use that on the cookie sheet, so
well, and again, I still think that Mark read Ready Player One and then just was like,
let's do it, man. We're gonna do it. It's gonna be great. I can't wait.
I think that was a driver of like understanding that social networks could all be virtual and do all those things. The big thing though is that if no one's cracked it, and so you can say, well, no one's going to crack it, but that's a pretty big bet to say no one's going to crack this.
No, somebody will crack it, but it's distant. And as Apple has learned, it's not going to be next year.
Right. What you can't do is just flip a switch, right? Like, I think Apple's investing because they know that if they aren't pushing it forward, first off, it'll take longer to happen probably, and second, it'll be too late for them to catch up. And they don't want to have They want to build the iPhone's replacement if it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, I think Apple will say it's worth it as a hedge.
They're developing thousands of patents that they've developed.
That's true. They may just own it.
Yeah,
they may just own it.
It's not like they're losing money. I mean, they're printing money, and so this is the time that the smart companies, the time you do this, you look at some aggressive projects that only you can do. They are uniquely positioned because they make the chips. So the M1, M2, M3 chips, because they make those, because they make the development platform, they are better positioned than anyone else to do the AR VR if someone pulls it off. And the big thing is that if Apple does somehow come out and then the first one will be a developer version of things and it'll be whatever it is. If Apple pulls this off and they start going down the field, the chances of anyone else catching up will be the same that they're of catching up to the iPhone. It's not impossible. Android's done a good job at being able to even the market out, but it won't be very many people because now you're behind a company that's moving really fast
and that's
ahead of you.
That's what I'm saying is it's interesting to watch these other people who were invested in it fall by the wayside. Google had Google Glass, they had Cardboard, they were all in.
Well, Glass is still out. It's still
come on.
It's not public. They learned that it's not.
Let's be fair.
It's selling a lot of units.
Let's be fair. and even Microsoft's, regardless of their statements, they fired most of the people. It's going away. Who's another threat? Meta. Well, I wouldn't worry too much about Meta either. I think Apple. I agree with you, Alex. Apple's in the best position. And I think they're almost alone at the head of the pack at this point. Meta's the only close. Look at Magic Leap. Whatever happened to them?
Apple. Like people heard about what Apple was doing, and they were like, I don't think that Magic Leap can make it. I think everyone thought that Apple was going to come out a lot earlier than it did. But there were a lot of people that got real excited and then were afraid that Apple was going to come out next year with something and just got spooked.
Yeah. Well, also let's give Apple credit for something else. Any enterprise like this is going to require full-on support from developers. Hardware proposes, software disposes, and Apple has, I think, more than any other major company, has created a lot of credit and trust with developers that if we promote this as here is a development platform, here's something that we want you to develop for. Developers can have a lot of faith that Apple is invested in this themselves. They are going to stick with this for years and years because they believe in it until it actually gets all spun up. Whereas almost any other company, Google especially, this is just something that they're going to be into for this year until the economic headwinds or the macroeconomic whatever change, or they have this other idea that replaces it. It's almost a fool's errand to try to support anything that Google proposes for developers.
And Google's ADD is killing them, and now it's all about AI, and so everybody just went. It's that meme where the guy's walking with his girlfriend and he's looking over his shoulder at the the AI coming up behind and going, oh, that's better than VR. They're all distracted now. This is smart. Apple should just stay the course.
And there's a couple things that Apple again has that the other teams don't have that are working on this, and one is that because they own that whole stack, everything from the hardware all the way through, their ability to make everything work, through that. And we're not seeing something that they're going to release something, hope someone develops for it. Apple is building the tools, have been announcing the tools, rolling the tools out for 5 or 6 years now. So these are I think it might even be more. It might be 7 years now that they've been rolling out USDZ and rolling out tools that make that easier and rolling out pieces that make that easier and, slowly incorporating into other things. And so that's something that the other teams just don't have. The other thing is I really feel like after, I've used all of the platforms, and the thing that I have liked the least is the interface, the human machine interface for all of the every version of goggles that I've put on. And I put on most of the commercial ones and some that aren't commercial. And they're all funky when you put them on. Like, how do you get them started? And where do you go? And this interface is stupid. And why am I doing this? And, and trying to explain to somebody else, I can never pick up my goggles, pick up whatever I'm using, an Oculus, a HoloLens or whatever, and just hand it to someone and say, put this on and it'll work. It's always put it on. Now you got to tap the thing. And now you got to move the thing over here. And now you got to, and people get lost and you're like, oh, never mind, and
because you can't see, I can't
see what's going on.
So
yeah, exactly. I can't see, it's just so frustrating. You don't want to, and
not to mention there are some other, I think there's some other larger issues. There's battery life, there's size,
eyeglasses,
and then there's also the issue of moving. There's no really good way. You can't just walk forward in VR. There's no really good way to move. And the way they solved it in Ready Player One with the treadmill that goes in every direction, I think that's a non-starter. So I just think I'm not saying intractable, but there are definitely massive challenges with VR. Is it like going to a casino? Do you think for Tim Cook, he's looking at the roulette table and there's a lot of bets on there? I'm sure he's doing, the due diligence, and he's got committees working on strategic planning, and all of that. But
I don't know. I got to feel like he's in the roulette world just going 12. 12.
Let's stay on
12. Like if I just stay on it, because I don't know. This is doing this for a decade and building things around it.
You got to be
a lot of hedging.
You got to be patient. Yeah.
See, that's it. I wish Tim Cook was so exciting that he was a roulette player, but I think calling it hedging your bets, calling it something like what they do with one of the reasons they try to avoid all of these financial headwinds is they do financial hedging where they'll buy currency in one, and so that if the dollar's too strong, then they've got currency in the other way, and they do that. And that's what this is, right? I think ultimately whether you say it's a bet or a spin at the roulette wheel or a hedge or whatever, what they're really trying to do is say, what are the places where we have opportunity and there's opportunity for it to kill us? And that is why the VR AR project exists, is that it's an opportunity to replace the iPhone, and if anybody's going to do that, it better be us. And honestly, I think that's why they've been dillying around with the car all this time too. Is I think they think that there's an opportunity there, or at least they thought at some point an opportunity there for them to redefine the automotive market with their technology, and that it was worth placing that bet. And they have the money for it, right? So I think
they're the chip leader, Apple, so they can make some bets. Yeah. I would love to be a fly on the wall. Do you think he has a Game of Thrones room where the whole map is laid out and he's got or do you think maybe he's got a wall with strings attached by taxes?
No, I like to think he's got one of those one of those old French kings would have that human chessboard, and so he has employees dressed as the car with a little cardboard car.
I wanted to have one of those croupier rakes where he pushes the cars forward, and I mean, it must be fascinating to watch at this level with this much money. What's their cash position? Did they say? Is it 120 billion, 200 billion?
They have many tens of billions, if not.
They repatriated it, which means they can spend it now in the U.S. I would love to be a fly on the wall, because in some ways it's worse to have more money. It's worse to have more resources because you don't have to be as careful. But I think my sense of Apple management, Tim Cook especially, is that they are fairly thoughtful about
$165 billion.
And notice they aren't going out like Meta and Google and buying every company they can. They're very thoughtful and methodical in how they pursue this. And
they usually buy small because they wanted the culture to.
Yeah. They don't want to have a big culture clash. They don't want Time Warner. It's really fun to watch, and it's interesting to watch. And I'm glad I'm not an investor in tech stocks, because it's concerning. I mentioned this before. Philip Elmer DeWitt asked me to talk to his group of subscribers for his website, PED 3.0, and I didn't understand at the time that they're all Apple investors, that the people who subscribe to his stuff are Apple investors trying to see what the next big thing is. And I went in there saying, Apple. Talk about headwinds. Anyway, it's hard to bet against Apple these days. And I'm glad I don't have to think about that, But it feels like, look at this pie chart. This is interesting. This is the quarterly revenue by category. Two of these didn't exist. Wearables and services didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago. It was iPhone, Mac, and iPad. Yeah. And now more than a quarter of their revenue is coming from these new sources, 30% from these new sources that were just invented out of whole cloth. And that's what we have to kind of look back. That was 10 years ago. They said, maybe we should do a watch. Maybe we should have a HomePod. Maybe we should have some more peripherals. Maybe we should have Apple One. Maybe we should start Apple TV Plus. All of those things were the things that they've been doing for the last 10 years. And it's paid off. It's absolutely paid off. So
the App Store is in there too. Don't forget.
The same thing,
it's
right?
Also, all their cut from the App Store and App Store subscriptions. But you're right. This is,
that's
wearables,
ARPU,
home and
baby.
accessories used to be called other, but all it was like, trackballs.
Remember,
I don't know.
Remember, they were, 20 years ago, this
sucks.
green slice called Mac was it. That was the whole kit and caboodle. So at least if you look from historic point of view, they've done really, really the right thing all along. And of course, they were pretty lucky with the iPhone, or smart, but the iPhone really, there's been nothing like that in technology. You can't think of a single product that changed the world like the iPhone has.
Right. And it's hard to, and because they're singular, right? Because it's Apple with the iPhone and Apple owns the iPhone. Like, I don't know if I want to predict. Probably you could predict that Samsung will be selling lots and lots of smartphones in 10 or 15 years. But really what I do know is that in 10 or 15 years, there'll be lots of iPhones being sold and there'll be lots of Android phones being sold, whoever the brand is. And
there are
lots
more
of
Android
being
phones.
Sold.
There are 3 billion Android phones, but a lot of those are $50 crap.
Right.
Phones.
Right. And the fortunes could rise and fall. I think Android's not going anywhere, but the fortunes could rise and fall. I think iPhone, like Android, is not going to go anywhere, and there's only one source for iPhones.
Yeah, look at
Apple.
how hard it's been for Google to gain any traction at all in Android. They own the operating system.
And they make good phones.
And they make really good phones and no traction at all. Samsung completely dominates. It's very interesting.
It's hard to compete with a company that is the manufacturing company. That's all they do is manufacture things. They manufacture components. They know how to assemble them. They know how to ship them. They know how to box them. This is why Samsung, as much as we justifiably make fun of their desire to, our biggest feature is that we have a number on our feature chart that's larger than another number. That's why you can't really dismiss them, because man, they will figure, as soon as they figure out there's some money under the sofa, they will figure out a way to get under that sofa and get that money.
Well, and it gives their manufacturers, and they're somewhat even on the operating system, because they both use the same operating system. Right. So it really comes down to the hardware, and Samsung is able to produce the hardware.
And that's where I give Steve Jobs a lot of credit. From day one, he said, and it wasn't his idea initially. I think it was I don't remember who said it first, but if you want to dominate in this, you have to make the software and the hardware. You can't just make one.
And one of the first things he did when he got into Apple was to bury power computing and
get rid of all the
Motorola. I mean, they literally, when I say bury, they literally put them in, rolled them over with a bulldozer. Yeah, it was quick.
There was the famous really, really angry, I wouldn't call it a keynote, but at a conference, at a press event at a Macworld Boston, I think was Power Computing or another of the clone makers, held up like a zippered laptop case, the CEO saying, "This is our Mac clone laptop that we're now not allowed to sell, and it kicks the butt of anything else that's out there, and Apple won't let us release it." I said, "Okay, well, stinks to be you."
I think that was Motorola, and they were really upset because they there was a miscalculation about the G4 and the G3, and the G3 team put more L2 cache in, and suddenly it was way faster than G4. So all the cheap things that were going to be that Apple was giving away as G3s, like and selling a lot cheaper or letting them license it, suddenly were way faster than what it was going to destroy the company. Like literally the G3, G4 miscalculation and L3 and L2 cache or L3 cache would have destroyed Apple if they hadn't buried it.
It was Alan Kay, who was an Apple fellow for a long time, but also an early pioneer in computing, created Smalltalk. I think he was at Xerox PARC, who said people who are really serious about software should make their own hardware. And Steve Jobs really took that to heart, I think. That was something that, for him, was the foundation of Apple. And Apple has been working ever since to control the entire chain, not just hardware and software, but all the hardware. And look at the success of Apple Silicon, which is a big step in that direction. If they own it all.
And again, eventually it's going to be one big chip.
One big chip.
It's inside of here. It's going to be like a chip that you just slide in, because they've talked about it in reports. So they talk about the legacy hardware that they still have to deal with as far as supply chains, but I'm not going to deal with it for much
Let me
longer.
take a little break, and then when we come back, you do something every you do it yearly, right, Jason?
Yeah.
The hardware report card. Let's talk a little bit about that. That's where you go and ask some of the, the big, not me ever, but the big names in, not me ever, but the big names in
I'll
Apple.
put you on the list.
No,
for next
I'm
year.
just kidding. I don't care. In the Apple journalism, I like to give you a hard time.
All right,
understand.
taking you off the list.
Take me off the
What's the
list.
saying?
I don't want to be on the list. I have no idea. I'm the wrong guy to ask.
I love the saying, cows don't dance, but they like to be asked.
I'm a cow in this scenario, okay? Our show today, we have a great panel, and who needs to ask me when you got Jason Snell and Andy Ihnatko and Alex Lindsay? We're going to talk about the Apple report card from 6colors.com in just a sec. Our show today and our studio brought to you by our good friends at ACI Learning. You may say, well, who are they? Well, I know you know the name IT Pro. For the last decade, our partners at IT Pro have brought engaging, entertaining IT training to level up your career or organization. Well, now IT Pro is part of ACI Learning, and this has totally expanded the capabilities. It's very exciting. With IT Pro, ACI Learning is expanding its reach, its production capabilities, offering you the content and the learning mode you need at any stage in your development. Whether you're at the very beginning of your career, looking to move up in your sector, ACI Learning is here to support your growth, not only in IT now, but in audit readiness. Yeah, they've got Audit Pro, and in cybersecurity. This is really exciting for our entire IT Pro family. We know a lot of you got into IT Pro from this decade we've been talking about them. Well, now there's a whole lot more available to you. One of the most widely recognized beginner certificates, I bet a lot of you have the CompTIA A+ cert. It's often where you start in IT. CompTIA courses with IT Pro from ACI Learning make it easy to go from daydreaming about that career in IT to launching it. Earning certificates opens doors to most entry-level IT positions. It's frankly, if you think about it, they don't know. You don't have previous skill, previous experience. So how do they know that you can do the job? If you got the certs, for employers, when you're getting started, that's the way of saying, yep, see, I know, I've got my certs. It also shows more than just you have the knowledge. It shows you had the initiative and the ambition to learn that stuff, to take the test. It's not easy. And so that, as an employer, that also is encouraging. Okay, this person really takes this seriously. CompTIA courses with IT Pro make it easy to go from daydreaming about that career in IT to launching it. Earning certificates opens doors. It makes it possible for you to get into IT, and then the sky's the limit, because this is such a great field. Tech is one industry where opportunities outpace growth. And one of the hottest opportunities right now, cybersecurity. A recent LinkedIn study predicts IT jobs will be the most in-demand roles in 2023. There are far more jobs than there are people who could fill those jobs. There's no time to waste. This is a great opportunity for you. About 1/3 of information security jobs require a cybersecurity certification. That's more than the general IT. General IT is about 23% require a cert. Because when it comes to cybersecurity, you can't really gamble, right? When organizations are hungry for cybersecurity talent, And they look at the market, the cyber skills gap is getting bigger every day. The average salary now for cybersecurity specialists, $116,000. Wouldn't you like to be making that doing something you love? ACI Learning's information security analyst and cybersecurity specialist programs can get you started, get you certified, and these are widely accepted throughout the industry as the gold standard in what you need to get this job. They're going to look at you and go, oh, yeah, you're hired. In 2022, the global cybersecurity workforce gap, that is the number of people needed compared to the number of people available, increased by 26.2% compared to the year before, 2021. So, I mean, I bet 2023 is going to be even a bigger gap. There are jobs out there, well-paid, fun, interesting jobs, careers. Don't even call them jobs, careers available. ACI Learning offers multiple cybersecurity training programs that can prepare you to enter or advance with this really exciting growing industry. Among the most popular cybersecurity certs, some of them are tough. I was talking to somebody the other day. He's working on his CISSP. That's tough. But it's a boy. When you get that, man, you're golden. EC Councils is my favorite one. I still want to do this. Certified Ethical Hacker, CEH. Certified Network Defender. Cybersecurity Audit School. Cybersecurity Frameworks. Where and how you learn really matters. ACI Learning offers fully customizable training no matter what kind of learner you are. Maybe you like on demand. Maybe you like it remote. Of course, IT pros always had that. ACI Learning adds in-person instruction as well. They have hubs now you can go to if you want to, and there's an advantage to that, to be asking questions in person, to be with your peers learning. There's a lot to that to be said for that. The whole point is to take your learning beyond the classroom and get that great job. Explore what ACI Learning offers. IT Pro, Audit Pro, that includes enterprise solutions, webinars. I love the Skeptical Auditor podcast. You got practice labs. You've got those learning hubs and a great partnership program, too. Tech is one industry where opportunities literally outpace growth. And there is no area of tech where it outpaces it faster than cybersecurity. So many jobs open. 1/3 of information security jobs require a cybersecurity cert. Maintain your competitive edge across audit, IT, and cybersecurity readiness. Visit the website go.acilearning.com/twit. Go.acilearning.com/twit. And don't forget that offer code TWIT30 to get 30% off a standard premium individual IT Pro membership. This is the place. This is the place. IT Pro, even better with ACI Learning. Go.acilearning.com/twit. Make sure you use that address and the offer code TWIT30 so that they know you saw it here. And we thank them so much, not only for their support, but also for sponsoring our studio. We're in the TWiT studios, brought to you by ACI Learning. We really appreciate the partnership. A great company offering you really great opportunities. Thank you, ACI Learning. Okay, tell me what this report card is, Mr. Jason Snell.
It is the thing that I've been doing for way too many years now, since 2015. It is me asking a bunch of people, they're developers and writers and podcasters and other people who I sort of quantified as being Apple watchers. And 55 of them responded this year. And I asked them across a whole bunch of categories to basically give Apple a rating for 2022, in this case, from 1 to 5. And then fill out, send me their feelings. And I tell them don't write a lot, and then they write a lot.
They have all the feels, it turns out.
Oh, man. So we get some numbers. We get some change over time, which is really kind of fascinating. And then we get everybody's feelings out. So there's the way I always describe it is that it's almost like I'm trying to just get the vibe of the room. It's just like a survey of a sentiment of how people are feeling. It doesn't prove anything, but I think that what it is, I think it's illustrative of what the people who pay attention to Apple are sort of feeling about where Apple did well and where Apple is not doing well over the last year.
And so this, I guess the most important chart would be the change year over year. And this is in sentiment among Apple watchers.
Yes. Surprising
that the Mac's down a little bit. I mean, it's only 0.4%, but it's still kind of surprising.
The Mac, I think remember this is 2022, so I think the lack of the MacBook Pro coming out in the fall and the Mac Mini a little bit.
And no Mac Pro at all. Yeah.
Yes, that, and then I think they rolled some of the issues with the studio display camera and stuff in here too.
Okay.
And so that's why I went down. It's coming off of a real high, and it's still got a pretty good grade, but I think that they got dinged for not completing the Apple Silicon transition as they said they would and not getting that MacBook Pro out there.
Still 4.2 out of 5 is pretty good.
It's an A-, right? It's pretty good. Pretty good.
I'm surprised the iPhone's only 3.9 out of 5.
The iPhone, I think people feel that it's a little bit boring. I think that's the bottom line, is that the iPhone 13, 14 were minor updates, and so people aren't that excited. There are some Mac Mini people out there, right, or iPhone Mini people who are mad about the small phone going away.
It's the champagne of smartphones. It's the gold standard. I don't know what you would do to make this thing better, to be honest.
It's actually the lowest, tied for the lowest score I've ever gotten from the panel about the iPhone too. And I wonder, I do think, I honestly, it's just like the Mac going down in the era of Apple Silicon. I think it has to do more with a "what have you done for me lately" approach to it than anything else.
What have you done for me lately? It's so sad. Of course, even worse, HomeKit, which deserves a 2.7 out of 5.
Can you imagine what your parents would say if you brought a D+ home 2 periods in a row? Because it's unchanged from last year. I guess good news, everybody. The HomeKit score didn't go down. The bad news is the average was 2.7 out of 5. It's a D+ in my grade rubric. It's a D+. And really, the answer there is waiting for Matter, right? Like everybody's like, well, Apple said Matter would fix everything, but it hasn't come out yet, or at least
it is out now. And I don't think Matter matters. It's not as high level as people thought.
Apple hasn't enabled it in HomeKit, and in fact, also, they're reacting to the fact that late last year, Apple released their new home architecture that was supposed to be the foundation of all of this in beta, and not too long after they released it, they turned it back off.
Broke everything.
Oops. So that all, I think, factored into the scores there.
Also low, Dev Relations, another D, 2.8 out of 5. And that's really the App Store probably, yeah?
I think that there's so much dislike of Apple's approach to developers, the fact that the App Store we see lots of rejections in the App Store, and yet it's not very well curated. There's lots of scammy stuff that's in there, and this general feeling like the only thing that's ever going to stop Apple from behaving like this is governments. Yeah. And I think that they're all kind of resigned to that now. So it's the worst that developer relations has looked since Phil Schiller took it over and fixed a lot of problems with the App Store, because it used to be worse, but it's still not great. C-, not quite a D, C-, but on a downward slide ever since Phil's sort of reforms kicked in. They've been sort of trending downward with all the other stuff. Like, because I think there's something, especially if you're a developer, and mostly the people who voted in this category were developers, I think there's something really dispiriting in seeing Apple go to court and make proclamations in all sorts of places defending their ability to do these things that the developers don't like, because they're like, oh, it's not a mistake. It's not that they're too busy. They're saying that the quiet part out loud now.
Right.
And there's always been an attitude among people at Apple that the App Store is their, and the iPhone are their great invention, and that developers are sort of lucky to be brought along with them. And developers, guess what? They resent that.
Yeah. It's always been, it's institutionally a problem. And it's not just about App Store rejections. It's really about how much pride developers have in their apps, and that they feel as though the audience for these, they deserve to have a closer relationship with the people who use those apps. And they feel, I'm sorry, I should not speak for the entire developer community, but this is what I keep hearing time and time again from developers, that it's really, really difficult to basically create a community of users behind your app, because Apple does everything they possibly can to make sure that the people who buy your app, they're not users of your app, they're users of the App Store, they're users of the iPhone. Isn't it wonderful, Apple? Aren't we wonderful that we gave you this wonderful app? When the developer is like, no, we want to have a 20-year. Before the App Store, there are companies that have like 20-year relationships with certain customers, because there is this one-to-one relationship. They know the developers, they know they know it as a really wonderful shop, And the App Store relationship just really tries hard to negate that at every opportunity.
How
the
many
other
of
big
the
thing that happened this year was the fact that they did that thing where they put lots of crappy ads on individual app pages at some point, and then
That
they backed
pissed
off of
people
it. But
off,
that was like the top of mind when the survey was taken. Was that it's like, and it was again. Is that the deepest cut? No, but it is the latest in a whole long series of 1,000 cuts.
How many of the 55 are developers?
I'd say maybe 20-ish.
Okay.
And they're the ones, like most people who were not developers didn't vote in this category.
Oh, interesting.
They just said they had no opinion about developer relations. Some members of the press and the developers themselves had opinions.
Yeah. It's the lowest. No, it's not the lowest. HomeKit's the lowest, but it's the next lowest score, and it's pretty darn close. Highest score goes to hardware reliability. People think the Apple stuff's pretty reliable. I guess it is compared to everything else.
And a lot of goodwill about after what happened in the mid-2010s with the butterfly keyboard and stuff like that. I think people feel like the Apple Silicon hardware is pretty solid.
And
not
more
only
responsive, and there's right to repair and et cetera.
Yeah, and there's a proxy here of just like, is the hardware good? I think is part of what's going on here. But also I think it's do we have a terrible situation like the keyboard? We don't. Thank goodness for that. And so it's a little bit of a honeymoon there.
Next highest score, wearables. I think the Apple Watch is a home run. Yes, we all agree.
Those are both A's,
Actually,
yeah.
Oh, wearables is separate from Apple Watch. What did you mean?
Well, so I added Apple. I started with
AirPods?
Apple Watch, and I turned it into wearables midstream. So there's sort of two scores there because I'm still asking the original question, just kind of for historic reasons. At some point, I'll stop doing that, but maybe next year. But the idea there is I wanted to ask sort of about, now we think of that category as wearables, right? So it's not just about the Apple Watch, but it's about AirPods and stuff like that. And Apple scored really well. You know, these are places where Apple is doing pretty well. I think that everybody was really happy with the Apple Watch Ultra, that Apple is doing something new with the Apple Watch, because that is a place that had sort of stagnated the last couple of years. And so I think that was a positive. And the new AirPods Pro 2 came out last year, and that was, by all accounts, a winner for all concerned. And so I think people are pretty high on that category.
Is it just me? I feel like the Apple AirPods and the Pro, the regular AirPods and the Max are kind of middle of the road quality and overpriced. I don't think they're a home run. I think they're a home run for Apple because of the ecosystem. But in terms of, comparison to other products, there are better products at a lower price. Or is that just me saying that?
Well, I mean, there's some difference of opinion there, but I think if you're in the Apple ecosystem, the other products don't have the Apple secret sauce that makes them a better product if you use other Apple products. And that is tangible, right? Like AirPods Pro, I think is a very, very good product. AirPods Max, I know people who love it, but that one seems to be a bit much. Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Whereas I bought AirPods Pro 2, and I have no regrets because I think that is a spectacularly good product.
They're good, and I think the integration into the iPhone ecosystem is really great. And so as a result, even though audio-wise, they're middle of the pack, but that's good enough when you include all the other features in it. So, yeah.
I think it's still a very Johnny Ive sort of design where, oh my God, it looks great, and it really just tickles whatever part of your prehistoric genetic DNA that likes bright and shiny objects, because they are beautiful and they're wonderful. But then you get into, okay, but now I need to throw this in my backpack. Oh, well, it's not as easy to throw into a backpack as almost anything else. And they're really, really heavy. And
you're talking about the
Maxes.
Maxes.
Much heavy.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I agree with you on the earbuds. I think there are much better values out there. And really, I think what you're buying, the premium is
for
what you're paying
audiophiles. These are not.
It's not for audio. I don't think audio buds are going to be buds are in general going to be. Yeah. But I think that there's a lot of value, and I'll give you $75 if it means that every single time I think that I'm connected to my earbuds, I am actually connected to my earbuds, and that's something that sometimes to a fault, Apple delivers that.
I don't know, and maybe I just have too many devices in one place. But the biggest problem that I have is with my AirPods is that I pick up my phone. I'm looking at my phone and it's picking something else or not connecting to my AirPods. And I will admit, when I first got them, they seemed to work fine. And as things got more whatever, it suddenly is like, I just don't know if it's going to pick the right one. And that's been the most frustrating part. And so then what happens is, this is what the problem with an ecosystem is. Once I got out of that ecosystem, I started using lots of different. So I have like 3 different headsets typically floating around. I use open comms when I'm talking to people on the phone because I sound better to them because it's got a boom. And then I listen to my ultimate ears, the Fits, because they sound better to me. So I listen to those when I'm listening to music, I'm walking around or working. And then if I really like it, I still like the Maxes for when I'm really like, the number one use for my Maxes is for my TV. So
interesting.
We have the TV room carries into the rest of the house a lot. And so there's like the family headset that's a Bluetooth that somebody sent me a long time ago that everybody uses, and I don't understand how it works. Like I can't figure out what the buttons do, so I just put on my Air Max and I like my wife, my kids, they all know how that one works. I don't know, so I just bring my Max in and watch TV.
I'm in
at night.
Almost identical situation, and when I sit down and make a conference call or a phone call, I look at my open comms, I look at my Max, I look at my AirPods. I almost always choose the AirShocks because, if you say it sound. It's not your sound quality. That's okay, but it's mostly that quality.
I can do dishes and no one notices. That is literally the big
I like the open air. Yeah, the AfterShok's former sponsor are bone conduction, so they don't cover your ear. And then I think you're right. When I'm looking at Apple TV, I'm always going to reach for an Apple product because I always have to remember with the open comms. No, I push and hold this button, and then it pairs with that, and then so there's that extra cost. Mm-hmm. And then when I want comfort, the UE Fits are really good because they're molded.
Well, they just feel like they're part of your ear.
Yeah,
and I find that the bass is way better. And
I think they sound better. Although it's great, you can almost wear those AirPods around all the time with AirPods Pro too, because when the phone rings, it says you're getting a call from Lisa, and you can say I'll take it, and all of that integration is pretty nice for like all the time. So it's
I have to admit that it kind of broke the pairing, and maybe the new ones pair better because the pairing made me so frustrated that I just stopped buying Apple products.
They seem to have solved that, or maybe it's very possible that I am just so used to it that I know I'm gonna have to choose to keep it on there. I think the AirPods Pro 2 are better than they used to be. I used to lose them all the time. Are they? Is that?
And I admit I have a lot of phones. I have a lot of iPads. I have a lot of Macs. I have a lot of things that it could choose from. But I just feel like when I'm holding a phone, it should I just feel like you're Apple, man. Like
that's partly that's Bluetooth's problem, though, right?
But I'm like, it should know with the W1 chip or whatever the phone is moving. And it's in a state of listening to something. That's probably the one that
smarter. I think they're better, though. Jason, you think they're better than they used to be?
I think they are.
Yeah.
I don't get frustrated by that. Why are you connecting to the wrong thing nearly as much as I used to? I walk out of the house. I put them in. I put the earbuds in my ears when I'm next to my iPhone. It connects to the phone. I walk out of my house and start playing something on my Apple Watch, and it immediately switches and starts playing it off the Apple Watch. Ironically, though, we're talking about AirPods. Wirecutter says that, especially if you're an Apple user, the best earbuds are the Beats Fit Pro, which are $50 cheaper.
Are they as good? I haven't even used
also
them.
From Apple, and $50 cheaper, and they've got a physical control for volume, but and it doesn't have a wireless charging case. But just remember, Apple doesn't just make the AirPods; they also make the Beats Fit products, and in many cases, those can be as good or better.
Yeah, if you want voice-activated Siri control, the Beats Fit Pro, $150. So it's $100 less. Is that $50 less? No, it's $100.
$50 less.
Is it? Oh, okay. If you're an Apple fan and wants all the pairing and voice control convenience, so have you used these, Jason?
I haven't. I have friends who say they sound great. I am an AirPods person, Pro person. That's the one that fits the best for me. But these look good too. I kind of like that they're not the white ones that are always there for Apple. Other colors exist. Apple.
I'm just curious if they have all the functionality the AirPods Pro 2 have.
I think it's based on the AirPods original. So I think it doesn't have the latest and greatest stuff that's in the AirPods Pro 2. I think
the noise cancellation in the AirPods 2 is really good. Really, really good.
I think it is
good enough to wear in an airplane. And that's good. That's hard to do for earbuds. And I think that Kevin Toffel did an article on Stacy's webpage, Stacy on IoT.com, about using his AirPods Pro 2 as hearing aids. And, of course, they're not as good as hearing aids in terms of battery life and so forth, but he was able to use it to improve his hearing in a lot of situations. And that's kind of cool. And I think that's a newer feature. I don't know if the Beats Fit would do that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of untapped potential in this stuff. I won't go into. You've heard me say this before, so I won't go into my usual rant again. But if Apple or Google or somebody decides that they're going to do augmented reality as just this one earbud that you might be wearing in your ear, oh my goodness, could they really take off? Could especially if it's enhanced with Apple secret sauce that makes sure that when you're talking to your assistant, you're definitely talking to your assistant and no other noise is getting in, especially if it can tell where you're looking, or rather where your head is turned at one point. There's a lot of potential there. And that would justify for me the $200 or $250 expense. For me, though, however, anything that's a wireless earbud is more like, how well does it fit into my ear? Yeah. And once you've got that, is it reasonably good audio, meaning I don't notice how bad the audio is. And then after that, it's like, well, I'd much rather buy, if I have the choice between $250 for these really nice name brand ones, or I could buy 3 sets of really nice $80 or $90 ones and make sure that there's one in each one of my bags. Now that more and more of my devices don't have headphone ports, it's like that becomes a lot more important. These creature comforts become as important as the sound quality, I think, for most people.
Yeah. Well, you got a choice, which is good. The one report card grade I was surprised to see, that we're talking about the 6 colors Apple report card, the thing Jason does every year, is in environmental and social, where Apple really touts this. You know, they bring Lisa Jackson on, stand on the roof and stuff to really tout this, and it only got a 3.4. That's kind of a C-.
Yeah.
How come?
So this category is funny, and some people ask, like, why do I even do it? And the answer is Apple talks about how they want to change the world and make the world a better place, and I think that opens them up to questions about how they're doing. This is also, everybody sees something different in here. Like, people talk about their commitment to accessibility, and they say that they're doing great, or their commitment to green energy, and they say that it's really admirable, or using recycled metals in their products is great. But I will tell you, one of the big trends this year was Apple playing hardball in trying to prevent its retail employees from unionizing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just said that, you know, they're like, on the one hand, advanced data protection, good job. We really like that. On the other hand, trying to be a union buster, not so cool. And really everybody can believe, they can put into that category what they want. All I'm doing is taking their numbers and averaging it out. But I think that was the big one that I saw as a trend, was the union
also
busting in retail.
The fact that AirPods
return to work a little bit too.
AirPods are not exactly an environmentally friendly product. You can't.
Apple would tell you that you should bring them back when you're done with them, and then they will disassemble them and all of that. But yeah, they are the least friendly and easily because they're glued in little tiny batteries and stuff. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the NLRB just decided that the complaint that when Tim Cook basically said company-wide that people who talk about events and about goings-on inside of Apple are enemies of Apple. Whoa. We hate them as much as I'm sure you loyal Apple employees do. We assure you we will continue to discover and crush the people who discuss things that we don't want employees to discuss. NLRB said, hey, you know what? We actually do think that maybe that was intimidation of employees and people who are trying to unionize. We're going to continue to move forward on this.
Wow.
We'll let you know.
Wow. That sounds like the 1984 ad. That's what the guy was saying on the screen.
That was so tone deaf. I was surprised by that. To have again, because this came right after Apple had some negative PR, which they never enjoy having, about unionization and working conditions inside of Apple. And Tim Cook's like staff-wide email was, "Well, we've heard we've seen the same reports you did, and we feel exactly as you do. Pause. We are upset that our employees have." Don't worry, we're going to fight for you people who are loyal and don't wish for us to crush you. Like, okay, Tim, settle down.
Oh, wow. All right. All right, let's take another break, and then when we come back, all the other Apple news. I think we've said enough. All there is to say about Apple's results. Yeah.
Yep.
And probably more than there was to say about it. Let's be frank. This is Safer Internet Day, so please, ladies and gentlemen, wear your seatbelts as you listen to the show today. We don't want anything to happen to our fine audience. And if something does happen to you, then there's ZocDoc, our sponsor. I have to say, I've used ZocDoc. I love ZocDoc. There's nothing worse than going to a doctor's appointment thinking, I'm going to be the center of attention, and the doctor's like looking at his watch, not paying attention, not helping you. Instead of getting a doctor that doesn't work for you, go to ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app that lets you find and book doctors, but more importantly, maybe, they've got patient reviews. And they're going to take your insurance. That's one of the search fields. They're available when you need them, and they treat, almost any condition under the sun. It's not just doctors, it's dentists too, chiropractors. ZocDoc is absolutely the way to find your next doctor. Somebody who does it the way you want. Now, everybody has kind of a different opinion about how your doctor should be. Some people want the doctor just to say, this is what you should do it. Boom. Some people want to hear all the rationales. They want to hear the information. I suspect much of our audience is like that. But here's how you find out what kind of doctor is this doctor. Because those reviews will tell you. And I'll tell you what, the worst time in the world is when you're not feeling your best, you're trying to hold it together, and now you got to find a doctor. You're just going to go to the first one. This is the time to go to ZocDoc right now. Use their free app. Millions of users rely on it. You can find the right doctor that meets your needs and fits your schedule, and you can really drill down on the specialties too. I was looking for, not for myself, but for a family member, a doctor who specializes in gerontology, geriatrics. I found a doctor, was a perfect fit. Book an appointment with a few taps in there, although I will soon be looking for a geriatrics doctor too. Book an appointment with a few taps in their app. You can start feeling better with ZocDoc. iOS or Android, but I know you're going to want the iOS version. Actually, as always, the best thing to do, you might be tempted to go to the App Store. Go to the website, ZocDoc.com/MacBreak, and you get the link right there, and you can go right to it. It's the fastest way to find it. ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. Download the ZocDoc app for free, then find and book a top-rated doctor right now. Many of them, by the way, available within 24 hours. That's the other thing. Sometimes you find a doctor and they're not taking new patients. That's frustrating. You don't have to worry about that with ZocDoc. ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. Authenticated, verified reviews. All the doctors, they're all in there. It's just the greatest. ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. We thank them so much for not just supporting our show, but really for doing what they do, because it's a really useful service. ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. Are you all excited, Jason Snell, to watch Major League Soccer on Apple TV?
Sure.
Now, Premier League, that's something else, but this is MLS, which is the American Soccer League. They launched it in 100 territories, which tells me that it's not just in the U.S.
Nope, this is part of their worldwide soccer strategy. You can watch this stuff all over the world. The American Soccer League, which a lot of soccer stomps will be like, the American Soccer League, that's not very good.
Yeah, I wonder how that goes over in Barcelona or Madrid.
Let's say a lot of these games are at night. They're not going to really be watching them in Europe anyway, but they may be watching them in Central and South America and in Asia, where they are not necessarily the European soccer snobs that the rest of that Europe is. So we'll see.
This is
how
it
you
goes,
start. But I think it's an interesting idea. Yeah,
$99 for the whole season or $15 a month.
$79 if you're an Apple TV Plus subscriber.
If you already have Apple TV Plus, and if you have a family. You can share it to up to 6 a member. Are they cracking down like Netflix is? Does a family in Apple's terms have to be in the same IP address?
No.
It's anybody. It's your family.
Because you still have to have hardware. That's the advantage. It's not a software only thing.
Yeah.
They have a dongle of some kind that you have to deal with all the time, and so I think that a 10-year contract is an opportunity to innovate around live sports. It doesn't like how it goes the first year is going to be them figuring out how the baseball Friday night baseball was them starting to figure that out. And to be honest with you, not doing very well when they first started. We'll see how the season goes. But, the commentary was disastrous. And hopefully they'll get better. I'd watch it for like 15 minutes and just go, I can't.
I couldn't.
Like, I don't think
it felt more boring than it actually is, which is hard to do with baseball.
Well, the thing is that the thing about baseball is it lives on the commentators because it is not moving very fast. And when you have a great baseball commentator, it's a lot of fun to watch because they're adding context.
And you're learning about Wordle. Exactly. Yeah.
But when you don't have good commentators, it's pretty painful to watch.
And notable about this is that they have hired some of the highest profile soccer commentators. Of course, now granted, they don't have jobs anymore, right? Because all TV is now going to be done on Apple. All the MLS TV is on Apple's platform, but they have hired a bunch of high profile people, and the people I know who are in the know about, like the great local broadcasters, that a lot of them have been picked up here. But the larger question is exactly what I would interpret Alex's statement as, which is the great thing about baseball, especially, is that you have local announcers. And I would say to Alex about Apple's announcers that if you listen to any national baseball broadcast, you will find it shocking how bad the announcers are. It's not just Apple's broadcast. A midweek MLB Network game, some of the off-brand ESPN games, Sunday Night Baseball, really bad announcing, actually. There's a lot of bad national announcing to go along. The problem with MLS is there isn't any local announcing. There are, 30 teams, and so 15 games per match, and they're going to have 15 announcing sets for English language and Spanish. So basically, everybody's, and they're not going to be tied to teams because the teams all move around. They're going to be a little bit regionally locked. There'll be some more West Coast announcers and East Coast announcers. But what that means is, if you're a fan of a team, you're not going to get a regular announcer every week. You're not. You're going to get one of the national announcers assigned to you, just as it is in the NFL. And it'll be interesting to see how fans react to that, because NFL fans don't seem to mind it, but Major League Baseball fans really, really mind it. And I don't know how that'll play out for Apple. But the bottom line is they are going to do it, and they're going to have English and Spanish in every game, and all the Canadian games will also have a French track, which is awesome.
Well, and I think one of the challenges with national football, U.S. football, American football, or whatever, is that they do have really good national announcers because they're paying them an insane amount of money, and they're actually, it falls off really fast. Like, and I know that people aren't happy with Tony Romo.
That fourth CBS announcing team is
very
I
have
good,
to
right?
say, yeah.
No, what I'm saying
I've seen some.
What I was going to say
bad.
It's in my opinion, there's like 3 crews in national football that I'll if it's not the Steelers, it has to be one of those 3 crews, or I'm not going to watch. It's the Thursday night football team, the Sunday night football team, and wherever Tony Romo is. For me, I know people complain about it, but I sure do love listening to him.
No,
talk.
I like him
and so,
too. He knows what he's talking about.
And the Manning brothers, if you don't give them any hosts, and I think that, to what Jason was talking about, I think that is the thing that people are missing, is the magic of ESPN is failing on that, that model, but they're slowly figuring this out, and they're slowly getting rid of all the other guests and letting the Manning brothers just do their thing, watching football. 2 geeky brothers who actually played football for years and at a high level, and talking to each other and letting them just do inside football the whole time. And hopefully MLS can get to a point where there's a stream, because the best part of HLS streaming is that I can put a whole bunch of tracks in there. Like, I can sit there and just go, hey, we're going to take 2 of the Ducks and put them in there and let them just watch the game and talk. And that can just be another track. And it's, in the grand scheme of the cost of production, it's very low to let someone sit there and watch a feed and talk about it while they're doing it. And so I think that they could innovate in a lot of ways that you can't in national broadcasts, where you could have the beginner's one where they explain to you everything that you're watching and what does this mean. And they could have the geeky one where they're only, or the numbers one where they're only talking about the stats. Statcast, or you could literally probably put up have one stream that's a corner of how you use the score thing on the program and the thing. When I was a kid, that was my life, was that little.
It's the only way to watch
card.
baseball is to score along with the game. Otherwise, you drift off to sleep.
You get a hot dog. There's hot dogs. There's cheering. There's beer.
But I got a problem because I always get mustard and relish on my scorecard, and it's just a mess.
It's something that they're doing with with soccer that I hope they do with baseball too is with the MLS matches, and the relationship's different, but the local radio broadcast of the home team will be simulcast.
Yeah.
And so will they do that? I would love to see them make a deal with MLB where they're allowed to do that with
I wish they would.
their broadcast too, so that you can watch their announcers.
Yes.
I think the fear is that nobody will watch their announcers then. They will all say, show me my local radio broadcast instead. But at least they'll still be watching Apple TV. Maybe that's all that matters.
Well, and again, the geeky part of it is, I went to a game with someone who trains trains baseball players, like when they're in high school and before they go to college, and watching someone, and used to be a pro player, and watching him, he'd go, oh, he's going to try to pull it. Watch where he's putting his foot. And then now the pitcher has to make a decision about how whether they're going to throw a slider to the outside, or whether there's this where the batter wants to put his foot, and whether he's bluffing, and whether he's doing, and for him, the whole game is very complicated and happening all the time. And you're watching like all the shifts and all the things, but we never see any of that because most of the announcers never played baseball. they don't know what they're looking. I mean, they know the stats and they know the basic stuff, but they're not watching as a baseball player sitting there going, when he moves his hips that way, this is what he wants to do.
I'll just say, Alex, the best announcers know all that stuff. The best announcers know all that stuff. They're not. You don't have to be a jock to be a good announcer. Maybe it helps, but you don't have to be.
Yeah. I just haven't heard it. Like, I hear it from players. I just don't hear it from announcers. But maybe I don't watch it. I don't watch enough baseball because the Pirates aren't very good.
Yeah, so that's always my fear. That I think that Apple could do a whole bunch of wonderful things to innovate how sports broadcasts are put out there. But it really comes, you can't lose sight of the fact that great sports broadcasting, it's about great storytelling. It doesn't matter if you've got the ability to choose whatever angle you want, or if, hey, we're going to make sure that instead of one or two announcers, there are going to be 100 announcers. You can always choose which one is streaming that you like the best. I hope that that any good sports channel is going to make sure that they're developing the talent inside that booth. Those teams of people that everyone in that booth has something to contribute. Just as you say, even if it's even in the former catcher who doesn't necessarily speak all the time, but the time that he does speak, he says, "Oh, you can see that Wellington is trying to increase the strike zone. He usually has very, very good luck with this particular umpire, and I think that we're going to see a pitching change because of it." All that sort of stuff where I had no idea that was going on. I thought there was just grown millionaires throwing balls at each other, and instead there's this real like operatic passion play going on of lies, deceit, deception, mistrust. And that's the sort of thing that you need to invest in. People who are really great storytellers, not just people who know when to switch the camera.
Matthew Panzarino got a interview with Apple's Vice President of Platform Architecture and Hardware Technologies, Tim Millett, as well as VP of Worldwide Product Marketing, Bob Borchers, about the Apple M series chips. I really did try to read it, but I'm hoping one of you actually got all the way through it and found something of interest. Was there anything interesting?
My favorite part was a long discussion about Macs and gaming, which I thought was very forthright in that they didn't. There were pointed questions about if Apple is ever going to be a really attractive target for AAA gaming, which is always. I mean, as almost as long as I've been covering Apple. I mean, Dark Castle was a big hit. Okay, Harrier Strike, another really big hit. Shuffle Puck Cafe, another big hit. After that, the Mac has had a really long dry stretch.
Paper Airplane game, that was good.
There you go, Glider. These were all. But Apple has had such a hard time making the Mac into an attractive platform, and so there was a long conversation about very forthright about how we know that we're not going to be able to turn this around very quickly. We think that with Metal 3. And with what we're doing with the M1 series, that we're trying to we're trying to get developers to understand what an opportunity the Mac is now as a platform. Just the idea of having combined video RAM, imagine having a graphics a GPU that has 96 gigabytes of RAM. that could be interesting on the Mac Pro to develop for, and even on a smaller scale with the iMacs and stuff like that. Because we would love to. I would love to be. I'm not in the position where I think I can justify $500 for a really good game console, and I'm certainly not going to spend $2,000 on a Windows gaming machine. But if my new M2 Mac Mini were able to play. We're able to play some of these really great top tier games at a level that would be at the same level as a $2,000 gaming PC. Maybe I would spend $70 on something like the new Red Dead Redemption. This is the sort of stuff that would get me interested in it. And it's a big problem trying to get these developers to understand that no, this is not a barren wasteland. There's actually money to be made. Please come make money on our platform.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that they made it clear that when they designed the chips originally for iOS, they weren't building any of those capabilities in because you're not going to do them on a phone. But now that they're on the desktop, that might be the biggest distinction between the A15 and A14 for iPhone versus an M1 or M2 for the Mac, is that they are putting more energy into GPU design and metal and so forth. It didn't sound like, maybe I missed it, that they were talking to partners about, like, let's say AMD, about making discrete graphics, that they really wanted to make Apple graphics be the way to go. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
All the way.
Jason.
It's been architected that way from the beginning. The amount of effort that they would need to do to add non-Apple GPU stuff onto a Mac Pro, basically, like, they might do it, but it would be a huge amount of effort, and it would really require a rethink of some of the stuff. And the question is, would you do all that to rethink your processor architecture for the Mac Pro, which is the nichiest of what is already a niche product, the Mac, and Apple's overall revenue, right? I think that's the challenge there. I think it's more likely, right, that they might do something where there's an add-on card that adds a bunch of Apple GPUs. But the whole gaming thing, like, Apple's never gotten gaming. When Apple's been successful at gaming, and Andy knows this going back, way back, and when Apple's been successful with gaming, it's been by accident because they built hardware that people have wanted to play games on, and that's what happened with the iPhone and the App Store. And so, and at this point, I feel like it's been so long that, I mean, we can talk about games on the Mac, but the truth is Apple just uses games on the Mac as a proxy to talk about their GPU performance. And nobody is, yes, you can play Resident Evil, the latest version, Resident Evil Village, on the Mac, and it looks great. But that is also a 2-3-year-old game, and it's like the one, and the rest don't exist, and it's because that ship has sailed. That's just it. So Apple just uses that as, it's good for marketing, and you see it in the iPhone demos, right? It's a good proxy for their GPU prowess, when the fact is most people are not playing Super Rev 3D role-playing games on their iPhone. They're playing casual games, but it's useful for Apple to have that to show off.
I think that it would behoove Apple to really think, and this is in a couple different layers, of really look at what Epic's doing with the mega grants and think about how they could incentivize people to do some tests, not even create a whole game. There's a pretty weak point, in my opinion, in gaming, in that they're not very. I get that esports feels really big, but it's still really small, and part of it is because it's too geeky. It's
our local high schools. Petaluma High and Casa Grande just announced esports teams. They're playing Mario Kart that will be on a par with their baseball and football teams.
When you look at the real numbers of users and the real numbers of viewers, I mean, they can fill a stadium, but can they do that in 27 cities every week reliably? And probably not. And so the thing is that it's still a very, very, small and undeveloped market. And part of the problem is that most of the games are too complex to watch.
Yeah.
And so it's just too many things going on, too many places. You don't know where you are. The camera work is really horrible. There's a whole bunch of things that could be a lot better. And Apple could innovate in those areas and really press down on it. And probably, because there's things you can do with that GPU and that CPU that would make them competitive if they took full advantage of them, and funding things that would actually do that would be pretty interesting. But it's a market that could be taken away from the relatively small market that it is right now.
We all know that famously Apple has hired filmmakers just to be on staff at Apple to use the tools that they're developing, so they get a better eye on what's working, what's not, what's what they need to go for, what they need to abandon. You think that they have a couple of game developers on board that are just doing that same sort of thing, that we need to understand how game developers are pressing the hardware and what's not working?
I don't think you want game developers. Like, I think that's the problem. Like, the problem is people from the inside constantly making things that aren't going to be scalable. Like, and so the thing is that what you want is to get some folks from regular sports talking to people who develop games and build something that is like football or baseball or soccer, not those games, but something that is in a much more open space. The problem is it's not very viewable. Like, and so the thing is, it's viewable for the people who are into the game. It's just not viewable. I
didn't mean as an audience thing. I just meant go ahead.
Again, I think that we know what pushes those things. Is the problem is that the game development themselves, you're not going to get something new until you find somebody that's outside of that going back in. And I don't know if Apple found that they have the money to actually drive that in and build it so that it takes full advantage of the hardware. Like, if you could have something because of the way the iOS and blends into Mac OS, you could have something that can be played on a phone and it takes full advantage of an Ultra phone or whatever they want, and can be played on a Mac Pro that is totally decked out, and it will suck up every ounce of processing power in both ends. And you could build something like that and make it viewable. And if Apple did something like that, they would be able to do something that was new and different. They're not going to be able to they can't do more of the same and expect to ever have any impact. They're going to have to disrupt the market with something else if they care. I don't know if Apple cares.
Yeah, I just meant in the sense, not in the sense of actually making a product or even necessarily making a demo, but the fact that, again, they have filmmakers whose job is not necessarily just to make Apple training videos and Apple marketing videos, but also we want someone who actually does this for a living, who's entered this company only 2 or 3 years ago, to use our products, to use early editions of our products, to be the first people to tell us how much our editing software stinks before an actual paying customer does. So I just suddenly thought that even if they don't have, this is not something they're going to be putting into Apple Arcade or something. If they had a couple of game developers who are ready to have a regular 9-to-5 job, salary, not be fired at the end of every crunch cycle, and simply say, build games that will not be released, but you will tell us what the bottlenecks are in our graphics pipeline. You will tell us where Xcode is falling short. You're telling us where, my God, if I were doing this for any other graphics target, this would be so easy. Why are you making this so hard?
Well, and the hard part is figuring out how big of the market it is that would be doing it, because the filmmakers, I can, as someone who's done this. I mean, I was complaining to someone about the fact that when I recorded uncompressed 444 footage, this is 10 years ago. I was more than 10 years, 15 years ago. I'm recording uncompressed 444 footage into my Mac through Final Cut Pro, and it's, I'm dropping frames, every X number, and literally what came back is, you're the only person in the world doing that. I just want to make sure your development time is probably going to be very low, because you're not, it's not a very large, we don't see that as a large addressable market. And it was just flat. It was someone being flat with me, like, we're probably not going to fix that problem. And it was an eye opener for me, because I had to think through that lens. And like, I was just doing something in Keynote, and I thought of this cool animation that I wanted in Keynote, and I started trying to build it in Keynote. I built a pretty complex set of animations with Keynote, but then there was all these things missing. And I was like, I'm going to send Apple like a whole slew of feedback things and explain exactly what I'm trying to do. And I was like, who else is ever going to do what I'm doing? So I think that's always the hard part when you have even filmmakers talking to Apple. It's like they want a bunch of things from Final Cut, but the question is does that really, what will 90% of the market do 90% of the time, is kind of Apple's sweet spot.
One other thing, and maybe I'm just reading between the lines in this Panzerino interview, but I got the sense, maybe Jason, you've kind of said this, so maybe you can confirm whether this is what you read out of it too, that they released the M2 only because they felt like they kind of had to keep up a year-to-year cadence. He said, Millett said, to make sure people didn't see the M1 as a one and done, kind of implying that, yeah, we know the M2 isn't a big jump, but we got to put it out. And I don't know. I'm thinking maybe next year it's the M3 that we should be looking for a big jump. Did you get that same sense?
Yeah, reading between the lines, and I've interviewed Tim Millet a bunch of times, and he's a really forthcoming guy. Actually, he's more forthcoming than I think Apple PR would like him to be sometimes. And he's a straight shooter, I would say, and very enthusiastic about what Apple has done with its chips. And yes, reading between the lines here, part of it is what makes this unique is it's the second one, and so we're doing it again, right? And yet you do get the feeling like maybe M3, and we've talked about it here before, maybe M3 is where they sort of leapfrog one generation of iPhone chips, and it's got a whole bunch of new stuff in it. And the M2 is more just to keep the trains running, keep the ball rolling. And honestly, if you're inside Apple, I would imagine it's hard to get super excited about the M2 when you probably are working on like the M5 right now, right?
Yeah.
So, and you know that the M3 is the one that's really hot. The M2 is okay. But like, I think it's safe to say that, the M2 exists in part to just make everybody understand Apple's in this. They're going to keep making these chips. They're going to keep getting better. And like, I know we did it once, but we got to show you that we're committed and we're still going to be here. And yeah, it's incremental, but yeah, if I were him, I probably wouldn't be that excited about it because I suspect that there are bigger things coming down the road.
We reported, of course, last week that Evans Hankey was leaving Apple after 3 years as design head. She took over for Jony Ive. Now, from Mark Gurman comes the story, Apple is not going to replace her, that the team of industrial designers will just report to Jeff Williams, as chief operating officer, and there will be no longer a design chief role. That's, to me, kind of interesting if true. Do you think Apple feels a little burned by the Jony Ive era and saying, yeah, we gave Jony way too much power. Maybe we don't need somebody in charge with that kind of power. Maybe Jeff could just run this team. Any thoughts, Andy?
Go ahead.
You can start, Jason.
As somebody who used to manage a bunch of people, it feels to me like this is a situation where two things are happening. One is Jony Ive left, and he left with a lot of his people. And so I think that there maybe was a brain drain inside this organization. Evans Hankey stepped up and said, I'll do it for a while. And then she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. And when they make this thing where they're going to elevate some of the leaders in the design group to run the groups, and then they're all going to report to Jeff Williams, Jeff Williams doesn't want all these designers reporting to him. He totally doesn't want that. But so the way I read it is not that this is some sort of, it could be, but it's unlikely to me that this is some sort of scheme where it's operations taking control of the design department. Feels to me more like they didn't have a candidate to be the number one on the inside. They don't want to hire on the outside for this. This is not the kind of job you hire from the outside to be designer at Apple, design lead at Apple. It just doesn't happen. It would have to be a former Apple person coming back for that to work at all. And I immediately saw this and thought they don't have somebody who's a clear number one who stepped forward, and they've got a bunch of people they may actually be afraid to lose if they promote one of them because they're a group of peers. So we're just gonna let it ride. We're going to give those more senior people a little more authority over their teams. We're going to say it reports to Jeff. And Jeff is probably like, designers, I don't want to talk to you, because he doesn't want a bunch of designers.
No, he's Tim Cook's
doesn't.
Anointed successor. He's the operations guy. He's the supply chain guy. And so this is exactly who you don't want to run design if you want good design. But as Gurman points out, Apple still has some veterans from the Ive era, including Molly Anderson, Duncan Kerr, Bart Andre, Richard Haworth, Peter Russell Clark, and Ben Schaefer. I think you nailed it when you said Apple didn't want to take one of them and put them in charge because the others would go, screw that.
Right. And then you've got an even worse brain drain than you already have with Jony Ive taking so many people with him when he left.
I think that sounds exactly right. Haworth was briefly the head of industrial design between 2015 and 2017 while I was still there, but just not as involved. And Gurman says he struggled to manage a crew of former peers. He's been at Apple for 30 years. I think that makes a lot of sense, that you trust these guys. I don't know if you really want Jeff Williams to be saying, this should be a paler shade of blue, but
Right.
maybe.
And in the background, maybe you're keeping an eye on them and saying like one of them will step forward, and you could down the road in a few years you could promote them to do this. But like there is, if you're Apple and you're in this situation where you can't hire from outside and there's nobody who you could really promote, or if there is, it's somebody who would be a little shaky, or the other 3 or 4 senior people would quit. Then what do you do? And the answer is you do this. So I don't know for sure that this is what's going on here, but from the outside, that sure feels like what's going on here.
Yeah. And that makes sense. I guess I have to say I think they probably felt a little burned by the Jony Ive era, where Jony got more and more power, including over not just industrial design, but software and so forth.
Well,
and they maybe didn't want to go
end.
that way again.
I think that Jony Ive was checked by Steve. Steve would,
right. They had somebody to keep an eye on him, and
there was a yin and yang, and then when half of that went away, he just kind of kept spiraling up because there was no one there that he respected enough to really get checked by. So I think that was.
In case you're curious, Jony though is keeping busy. He's just recently designed a new clown nose for Comic Relief Red Nose Day. It's a flat pack design. I'm not kidding.
It works great.
Yeah, it's largely made of paper and it folds out, but it does fold back into a small case for Red Nose Day, which I was told over on Comic Relief. It benefits many charities. It was started in the U.S., but apparently I was told by Will Harris, who was on TWiT on Sunday, it's become huge in the U.K. Just as on Memorial Day you see, or is it Memorial Day you see the red poppies everywhere. Apparently, a lot of people walk around with red noses on March 17th, and if you are really in the know, you'll have this Jony Ive designed special red nose.
And you can't, and they're sold out. You used to be able to buy them off of Amazon UK, but you cannot.
Did you try to buy his red nose?
I did try to buy the red nose. It's a Jony Ive designed product I could actually afford. £2.50. I got that. I can do that. It looked pretty cool too. And also do a YouTube search for Red Nose Day, because a lot of comedians, like a lot of actors, will come out, bring old characters out of retirement, and basically get the band back together and do new comedy for Red Nose Day.
It's a very big deal. And last year they raised. In the UK alone, £42.8 million for a variety of good causes. So that's cool. That's cool.
By the way, about Jony having too much power, I will say that Apple benefited after Steve died. Apple used Jony and his high profile and kept him to stay and kept giving him power because they didn't want the double whammy of losing Steve and then losing Jony. So it's not all like Jony. I think if you read that book that came out by Trip Mickle, Jony kind of was done, right? And they're like, no, Jony, you can work at home. You can go to England. You can be in charge of software. You can make a car. You can, we'll give you money. Just please stay. And they did that for a while, and they're finally like, all right, okay, we enough time has passed. We'll let you go. And so they're kind of undoing some of that stuff now too.
Yeah, I think that's really positive when you find that you have a role, you have such a senior role that is now vacant, and then you realize that we don't need that to be that role at that level anymore. We don't need to have someone reporting directly to the CEO on design. We can actually just have a bunch of people that are working both collaboratively and individually on projects as needed. That's a sign of a really well-run company when you simply, because you know how like government bureaucracy is. That is one of the pushback against the development of any new government agency, no matter how important it is that once their mission is over with, it will not be possible to shut this down, because that's not how governments work. Right. People protect their budgets. The fact that Apple simply said, you know what, we're just not going to refill this position, this position is no longer necessary. That's really good for Apple. Yeah,
I'm sure that Jeff Williams would like ultimately there to be somebody as a head of our hardware design to go with Alan Dye as the head of software design, just because, again, I think if you're Jeff Williams, having more direct reports is not what you want, right? Like I think anybody who worked in a corporate structure knows when they hand you a bunch of new direct reports and you're like, what, why? So I'm sure Jeff Williams doesn't want them, but clearly they don't have one now. I don't think anybody is ever going to be exalted Jony Ive, right? Reports to the CEO can do whatever he wants. That's not going to happen. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 3 or 4 years they do identify somebody in that group and say, okay, this person's the leader, and that they are ready for that. But they're clearly not ready for it now. So here we are.
And I just want to point out, Andy, that you can get a red nose on eBay. Just you might want to go right now for $10.80. Get the official.
Oh, I don't got $10.80. I had especially the current macroeconomic exchange rates. I had that.
Headwinds.
Well, it's a little harder to brace those headwinds when you're wearing a big red nose. So, and somebody pointed out that March 17th is also St. Patrick's Day, so many will get their red noses for free. So, it works. It's a win-win all around. If you are on eBay, you might want to bid on some old Apple crap. Quite a bit of old Apple crap, as a matter of fact. Retro computing website Vintage Apple is selling its entire collection, 500 items on eBay, including leases. Be nice to get that in the 40th anniversary. Accelerators, compact Macs, complete working systems, CRTs, printers, yes, laser writers, power books, and more. It's on eBay. There's a full listing if you're in the market for some old Apple crap. It's kind of expensive. I mean, a PowerBook 100 for $160.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, are they selling it as individuals or as a lot? Because I'm seeing the link and the.
Looks like you can buy individuals. So, for instance,
okay,
they are selling the Mac Pro, which I spent a little more than $300 for. I think, as I remember, is for $310. This is a 128 gigabyte, 2 terabyte, 12 core Apple Mac Pro, but they have enough of them, I guess. Well, now maybe is this the same sale? It's in the listing. Looks like you can configure it. I gave mine to Nathan Oliveris Giles, so I don't. Maybe he's selling his. This looks like a massive lot of vintage Mac stuff. Oh, wait a minute, you're right. You're right. These were similar items. No, you're right. They're selling the whole thing for $12,000. And you got to do free local pickup in Santa Barbara. And it looks like they weren't able to sell it, actually, because the auction has ended.
Yeah. It's there's too much funniness going on with the used Apple market now that like you have middle-aged people who like now they no longer have to support their kids. They're now like, ooh, I'm gonna reassemble that Mac Mac SE 30 that I used to have. And yeah, I mean, these things are basically, they're sold to the millions. They're almost certainly going to require a lot of work to get them actually functioning again. And you can just go to archive.org and rerun all that old software and emulation through a web browser for free.
You got to drive to Santa Barbara to pick it up. They have relisted it. The starting bid is $11,000 still, although the buy it now price of a mere $14,500 is a pretty good deal if you want to get a whole.
It just costs so much to store that stuff.
I think that's why he's selling it, right? He's like,
I mean, I used to have a lot more stuff than I used to. Like after years and years at the MIT flea market, and I was spending so much money just to keep this in storage that I realized that what I could just like throw out all of it, rebuy anything that I want if I ever think of it in the next 10 years, and I won't make money back on the deal. Yeah.
And don't bother contacting him and saying, well, I'd take that daisy wheel off your hands. He says, I'm not selling it individually, just as you said, Andy. It's all or nothing. Boy, he was a pack rat. Look at all this stuff. Holy cow.
Yeah. See, again, there's so many collections like this because there's so many years in which like anything in any classic Mac and the classic Mac form factor, there were years the MIT flea market where it came down to if someone had 10 of them and you offer them $5 for the lot, you could take them. And that was
take
most
them off
of the
my
Mac.
hands. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't have to deal with like recycling a CRT. They're taking too much room. I have a child now. I have responsibilities. I'm a grown up now. And now I think you're seeing a lot of people that were able to scoop up these things for $10. Yeah, I'll buy that for $10. And now you've got this huge garage full of stuff that you realize now that you don't really enjoy anymore, and it's not giving you any pleasure. I've only kept like a handful of them, the ones that I think that are like frog design ones, like the iMac G3, things that I think are really pretty in and of themselves, and I just have them as like ornaments in my house because oh my god, if you decide to say I'm going to get every Performa in a big rack with labels on them, oh my god, how can you afford to have a library space where you can have all the Performas like stacked up like that? Good heavens!
It is Safer Internet Day today. Celebrate as you wish. Apple has a whole page dedicated to families, apple.com/families, where they talk about all the things you can do to protect your kids online. They are also adding some Today at Apple classes for kids and families to talk about, being safe online and so forth. I think that's a good thing. So this is a very elaborate page with a lot of stuff. Also, as long as you're going back to apple.com, you might note a redesign. Can you tell me what the redesign is? Look at this. They got drop-down menus. Okay, how exciting is that, huh?
Now, it might not work in Safari, but if you run it in Chrome, that has all the latest JavaScript standards. You're good.
Look at that. Look at that. It runs in Safari, right? I would hope. Right?
Oh no, I'm joking, but yeah.
I'm doing it in Firefox and it works.
They want to get your money with one fewer click. That's smart. That's just marketing.
Well, in a way, it kind of is needed because what you had to do in the past is click on the heading and then go to that page and drill down. Now, when you hover over a heading, you can see all of the things that have to do with Macs and go a little bit faster to the page you want.
Particularly because before you'd click on iPad and you'd get the landing page for whatever the latest hottest iPad is that they want to try to sell you, and it became a little bit difficult. No, I thought that there was my friend told me there was a really great one for $499. What's this $1,000 iPad Pro?
Yeah. I guess this might be of interest to you, Alex, considering your expertise with Midjourney. The startup that started Stable Diffusion is launching a generative AI for video. It's called Gen 1.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Google's got it too?
Yep.
Yeah, Google's doing some stuff as well. So it's definitely, everybody's doing it. Most of these companies, the smaller companies that are going out, the bigger companies have been working on this for a decade. They just weren't putting them out because they're afraid to get sued.
Yeah.
They're afraid to get sued, and so they and so when everybody else got them out, it's kind of forced them all to the front. But Stable Diffusion, I imagine that we'll see something from I don't know about Midjourney, but potential. Obviously at some point, but also OpenAI will most likely put something out. They kind of have a lot of general purpose type solutions. But I think that the video is going to be really interesting. And again, I think that my experience right now is that I'm not too worried as an artist. Like as an artist, I wouldn't worry too much about all of these things because people are asking you to do something specific. But if I was doing stock photography or stock video, I'd be super concerned because I'm doing a presentation right now, and I needed a whole bunch of little illustrations that are just kind of fun. And in every page, I'm using Midjourney, like literally, cool. And it's just like these little examples of things and funny pictures and everything else. I'm just throwing these all in. And I used to spend like a doc like this. I would spend $400 on stock photography, and now I'm spending nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm getting better images. So that's the problem.
So this has been out for a while because commercial interests have been using it. It was used to generate video or motion pictures for everywhere all at once, and the Late Show used it for their show Open and so forth. So I guess others are using this. That's interesting. There's music now. Steps. There's stills. There's video.
I don't know if the Google
look at turn people into claymation. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Take a video and turn everybody into claymation.
Yeah.
Or make yourself on the moon.
I thought it was very interesting the way that the Google system, you can basically take existing photos. And it's not necessarily that's going to animate those photos, but you use photos to essentially storyboard what you want them to do. So if you say, I want a dinosaur on the middle of a grassy knoll, and I want there to be a duck in the horizon that's moving towards, you can basically start with, well, here's a picture of something on the grass on the left, and it's just a dog, but Google will say, oh, I know where you're going here. I know what you want. I can modify this how you want it to go.
This is pretty cool. So you have, Alex, I can just imagine you using this for stuff down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the video and the audio, the video music is still pretty early on. It's a couple of years behind the images and the so when I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's fine, but I don't know what I would do with it.
Yeah,
like Midjourney and ChatGPT, we know what to do with. Like a lot of us are using it.
How is this going to? And it really isn't part of MacBreak Weekly, but since I got you here, how is this going to shake out? Now there are quite a few lawsuits. Getty just joined the crowd suing to Stable Diffusion. This is the artists who created the originals are very upset.
The risk really is losing. Like if they, so the risk of this, what's kept everybody out was afraid they were going to get sued. So the lawsuits are going to clarify the law. I think that it's going to be, if you put your stuff on the internet, it's going to be pretty hard to say that that they, because it's not cutting and pasting anything from it. It's building models the way, not exactly the way a human would, but if I was looking at a lot of images, I think that the testimony is probably going to be talking to a lot of artists who say, well, like I know when I build something, I build a vision board. You know what that vision board is? It's everybody else's work. Like it's all this stuff. Like we study, I've had people like take a commercial and just break down every shot, and we look at it and we go, okay, we like this part, we like that part. Let's take this part of this part of this, and then we build something on our own that doesn't look like that commercial, but we definitely got ideas from that. And so I think that it's going to be a hard case to win. I think it's not impossible. Definitely could win. It's a hard case to win, and if they lose, it's over. Like as soon as if it gets to the Supreme Court and they lose these lawsuits that they're putting in, it'll be $1 trillion the next year of investment that will just bury everything, and because what's keeping everybody out is the risk of it. But once there's precedent, it's going to be game over.
Yeah. Although there was some disruption last year when an academic paper got published that demonstrating that diffusion model based AI image generators can actually be tricked into regenerating source images or the images that they were trained on. So not that I think that this makes this whole system morally bankrupt. But now, if a company did want to sue, or if I'm a photographer and I say, well, I know that my pictures appeared in that $2.2 billion data set that your Stable Diffusion model was trained on, and I see a picture that was generated that looks a lot like mine. Now, guess what? In the court of law, you're going to have to prove that your AI did not actually reassemble my original source. And just the fact that, even if they can't prove it, the fact that this makes things in doubt means that we're really going to have to spend a couple of years not just developing the technology, but having lots of lawsuits and having lots of judges establish precedents on here's how copyright law applies to generative AI. Does it apply to Alex who created the prompt for the image? Does it apply to the AI that actually generated the image? Does it apply to the $2.2 billion creator, 2.2 billion people in the training set? It's a lot of unanswered questions.
Usually, though, when it's unanswered, it's hard to get a judgment out of it. So yep. when it's unknown, like if it's hard to prove, you more have to prove that they did do it rather than that they have to prove that they didn't. So the thing is that it is, again, I'm not saying that it's an unwinnable lawsuit. Every lawsuit that goes to court is winnable. And so it's a very difficult and very treacherous way to try to get this done. And the problem is, again, there is potentially opportunities to negotiate. And now that the lawsuits are out, no one's going to negotiate. They're just going to wait and see what happens. And I think that tactically it's a little dangerous, to try to get artists, I think probably as a whole would have done better with trying to find a way to figure this all out, because now everyone's just going to wait and they're going to see how this turns out. And the hard part is that once it becomes too widely used, because these court cases will take years, it'll be hard to take it away, and so it's a complicated, pretty complicated mess. But if they lose, the amount of money that will go into this will be, eye popping, because everyone's excited about the opportunity. And once there's cases in that have been, once it's been decided at a high enough court of law, like no one's going to talk to the artists anymore about what they feel. If they lose,
both Google
if they
and
win,
Microsoft,
then they have a lot of leverage.
Both Google and Microsoft now are quickly rolling out text-based chat GPT like Google's
which they had.
Apprentice Bard, which they've had for a long time, is now becoming Bard. Microsoft announced an event on February 7th in which they're going to, I think, show us what they're going to do with chat GPT.
Yeah,
and the Google event is
I've been trying not to read the recaps of it. Yeah, the Microsoft event was
Today's
today.
the 7th? Oh.
Yeah.
I'm a little behind the times. Did you watch it?
They're calling it no, I've been trying not to read it.
It wasn't
during the
public.
Show.
Yeah.
But the reports, they're calling it an AI-powered co-pilot for the web in Bing, and of course, I've been underpinned by ChatGPT, and I'm salivating to read exactly what they're doing. I don't think it's going to be as good. I know this. I know this has to be very quick because this isn't a Google Microsoft ChatGPT show, but. It's like Google has been sitting on this for years. They just don't know. They just haven't known like what to do with it. If it was safe to know what to do with this, and so all these reports about how Google's getting its lunch eaten by. It's like no, they have this garage full of like fully armed and tactical battle stations, and now they have to figure out which ones they're going to charge up and actually deploy. So this is going to be a frisky month, I think. Yeah, a very frisky month.
We will watch with interest. And I might start using Bing. Who knows? I don't know. That's the kind of thing that could change everything, right? It's all of a sudden.
Well, if it stinks, I mean, it's the ChatGPT, except for very few, it's been great for a bunch of demos that really that's fun to play with when you can actually get access to it because it's often overwhelmed. Google, when they had a teaser for what they were talking about, and they're saying that not only is it going to be very verified, but also they basically slimmed down their model to make sure that it can handle the load of everybody basically asking everything everywhere all at once, so to speak. So we'll see how it goes.
I'll use Bing, but I will not use Edge. So if it's going to make me use Edge, then the hell with it. We're going to take a break, come back with your picks of the week, gentlemen. So prepare them while I mention my pick for all of you, which is to join our club. Increasingly important to us to keep the lights on and our staff employed. But I think we put together a pretty nice offering of features for $7 a month. Come on, a couple of cups of coffee. You get all of our shows ad-free. You wouldn't even be hearing this if you were a Club Twit member. You get some special stuff that we don't put out in public, like Micah Sargent's Hands on Macintosh or Hands on Windows with Paul Thurrott. They do those every week. We occasionally will put one or two of them on YouTube so you can see what it's like. But if you want the full bore, you gotta join the club. We also have the Untitled Linux Show with Jonathan Bennett. We've got the Giz Fizz every Wednesday with Dick D. Bartolo. We've got events coming up in the club, including on Friday. I'm going to interview Daniel Suarez for our triangulation. Club members will get to ask questions. There's a lot on the club, and I think it's a great deal, especially the fun Discord, which really is a big part of what makes the club so great. It's a community of like-minded people, Twit fans, who are really fun to be around. And it's not just chats during the shows, but it's chats in all areas that geeks would be interested in. All of this for $7 a month. Please go to twit.tv/clubtwit and join the fun. twit.tv/clubtwit. It makes a huge difference to us. In fact, it's part of our, I think, going forward, our plan to take Twit into the future is to make it more and more a part of the club. So help us out, will you? Hey, everybody, it's Leo Laporte, the founder and host of many of the TWiT podcasts. I don't normally talk to you about advertising, but I want to take a moment to do that right now. Our mission statement at TWiT, we're dedicated to building a highly engaged community of tech enthusiasts, that's our audience, and you, I guess, since you're listening, by offering them the knowledge they need to understand and use technology in today's world. To do that, we also create partnerships with trusted brands and make important introductions between them and our audience. It's how we finance our podcasts, but it's also, and our audience tells us this all the time, a part of the service we offer. It's a valued bit of information for our audience members. They want to know about great brands like yours. So can we help you by introducing you to our highly qualified audience? And boy, you get a lot with advertising on the TWiT podcasts. Partnering with TWiT means you're going to get, if I may say so humbly, the gold standard in podcast advertising. And we throw in a lot of valuable services. You get a full service continuity team supporting everything from copywriting to graphic design. I don't think anybody else does this or does this as well as we do. You get ads that are embedded in our content that are unique every time. I read them, our hosts read them. We always over-deliver on impressions. And frankly, we're here to talk about your product. So we really give our listeners a great introduction to what you offer. We've got onboarding services, ad tech with pod sites, that's free for direct clients. We give you a lot of reporting so you know who saw your advertisement. You'll even know how many responded by going to your website. We'll also give you courtesy commercials that you can share across social media and landing pages. We think these are really valuable. People like me and our other hosts talking about your product sincerely and informationally. Those are incredibly valuable. You also get other free goodies, mentions in our weekly newsletter that's sent out to thousands of fans. We give bonus ads to people who buy a significant amount of advertising. You'll get social media promotion too. But let me tell you, we are looking for an advertising partner that's going to be with us long term. Visit twit.tv/advertise. Check out our partner testimonials. Tim Broom, founder of IT Pro TV. They started IT Pro TV in 2013, immediately started advertising with us, and grew that company to a really amazing success. Hundreds of thousands of ongoing customers. They've been on our network for more than 10 years, and they say, and I'll quote Tim, "We would not be where we are today without the TWiT network." That's just one example. Mark McCrary, who's the CEO of Authentic, he was actually one of the first people to buy ads on our network. He's been with us for 16 years. He said, and I'm quoting, "The feedback from many advertisers over those 16 years across a range of product categories is that if ads and podcasts are going to work for a brand, they're going to work on TWiT shows." I'm proud to say that the ads we do over-deliver. They work really well because they're honest. They have integrity. Our audience trusts us, and we say, this is a great product. They believe it. They listen. Our listeners are highly intelligent. They're heavily engaged. They're tech-savvy. They're dedicated to our network. And that's partly because we only work with high-integrity partners that we have thoroughly and personally vetted. I approve every single advertiser on the network. If you're ready to elevate your brand and you've got a great product, I want you to reach out to us. Advertise at twit.tv. So I want you to break out of the advertising norm, grow your brand with host-read, authentic ads on twit.tv. Visit twit.tv/advertise for more details or email us advertise@twit.tv if you're ready to launch your campaign now. All right, Jason Snell, how about a pick of the week this week?
I'm gonna, I was thinking of a couple of things, some sort of open source stuff. I'm gonna go with one that I can't believe hasn't been picked. It turned out Merlin Mann picked it like 5,000 episodes ago, but it's still there. So I'm going to pick it, which is Calibre.
Oh, I love it. Yep.
The ebook utility. I recently, like a couple of years ago, decided to switch from Kindle to Kobo. And I hear from people who are trying to switch from various different things, or they've got a bunch of EPUBs and they want to put them in on a Kindle or whatever. And Calibre is a free open source. And yeah, it looks open source. It looks like a Mac app from 2004, but it works great. It's updated constantly. Like literally, if you leave the auto update on every time you launch it, you will be told that there is an update.
Yeah.
And it's got a plugin architecture. And so I will tell you, you got to do a little searching. You got to look for the DRM plugin if you must. But if you've got a Kindle, but you also want to, for example, save that off as a non-DRM'd Kindle book, there are ways to do it. I can migrate my Kindle books to my Kobo, so I can have them anywhere I want. When I buy a book that's in EPUB format, I drag it into Calibre, and it will format it like all nice and fancy for my Kobo using their Kobo plugin. The sky's the limit, really. If you've got ebooks, especially books you've downloaded or you want to migrate off of Kindle or something like that, Calibre does all that stuff. You can also clean up the cover art or change the name of the author or do whatever you want to organize it. It's sort of like iTunes for books, except not as, it's not as nice, and you wouldn't probably want to read them on it. But I have been plugging my ebook readers into Calibre for more than a decade now in order to move files back and forth. And it actually works great. And yeah, so some of the DRM, you have to get plugins to bypass it, but
you can.
It's just a great
point.
It's just a great utility. And I'm a firm believer that if I bought the book on Kindle and I want to read it somewhere else, I should be allowed to do that. And Calibre lets me do it. Yeah. Yep.
I have a Calibre project. I've got it because what I do is I buy a lot of books online, especially programming books, and I just put them in Apple's iBooks just because it's there. But that's only on Apple, and I use a lot of other systems. So I really have to sit down and I have a whole library of books that are ebooks, and I got to just convert them all into one format and keep them in a central database. Calibre is easily the way to do it.
Yeah.
Calibre.ebook.com.
Yeah, the big secret is if you've got a Kindle, even if it's an older Kindle, what you can do is you put your serial number in to the DRM plugin, and then you can go, I'm just giving away the store here, but a little known fact that your Kindle books can be downloaded directly on your Mac as a file. They don't want you to do it. You have to go find that option. But when you do that, you can get it out and into a format where it can go anywhere you want. And I'm just a believer that Amazon doesn't have the right to prevent me from using that book that I bought somewhere else. So Calibre lets me do that.
Yep. Really a great tool. Good recommendation. Mr. Andy Ihnatko, pick of the week.
I'm one of those freaks who I subscribe to music streaming services, but my music library is music files that I have on my server and on my phone and on my devices. Exactly. I buy CDs, sometimes a whole bag of them for $5 instead of like $10 for the whole thing. Rip them, and I buy high resolution music off of hdttracks.com. I believe that I want to be able to own my music, to be able to play them and use them on any app I want, any service that I want. And also, I don't want to have to worry that if I ever get rid of my subscription to Apple Music or Spotify, I will lose all the playlists that I've created. I'll lose all the library that I've created. The problem being an Apple user is that Apple Music has kind of crushed the market for like offline music players, for music players that are based on files that are somewhere accessible by your phone or your computer. There's an app called Vox that I don't like very much because it's just I just don't like it. It's too expensive.
I'm a long-time subscriber to Vox. I would love to replace it if you've got a good choice.
Yeah, I found an app recently called Doppler that's been around for 2 or 3 years. It's available for the Mac and for the iPhone, and it really is like iTunes 1.0, 2.0, meaning it's very, very simple, but very, very powerful. Supports every music format you could probably deal with. It supports high resolution music. It also supports spatial audio, but at its root, it is the simplicity of you point it at a folder of music that's on your Mac. If you've got an iPhone, you point it at your Files app and point it at like whatever app is going to be slurping in your music files into it, and then it's a very, very good modern music player. You can create playlists. It's got album art. It will find the album art for you. It's got DJ features. And it doesn't have to be complicated. As a matter of fact, and you could say that it has to be not complicated in order to work. And it really is, for me, the best app that I found for the iPhone to get me that sort of thing where I have, again, I want to put like 8 gigabytes worth of music files on my phone, and I'd just be able to play it. Now I know that if you are listening, you're thinking, well, who cares? Like even Apple Music will let you import like music files. Oh my God! No, oh my God! It's like the Borg. It will they will cease to be. They'll be like this walking undead thing where maybe it's your music files. Maybe it's files that say, oh well, he wouldn't want to stream these actual files. He'd want to get this off of Apple Music, and you have no idea whether what parts of your library are stuff that you own, what parts of your library are stuff that you're streaming. I still don't trust Apple Music to do anything. I don't want it to touch my actual files music library. I've got thousands and thousands of albums. I've got something like 18,000, 19,000 music tracks that are in there. And if any app were to screw this up, I would instantly, I would find new sources of hate and apply it to that thing very, very quickly. Doppler, it's very, very simple. It's straightforward. You can even import stuff via Wi-Fi, so that if you're like on a Windows machine and you just want to upload something from like from USB key, if you put a USB key into your iPhone, it'll work from there. I can't make it sound, I don't want to make it sound complicated, because it isn't. It is exactly what I was looking for. Just like, here is some music. It won't even necessarily have to build its own Doppler library. If you want to just simply say, leave it in place, just play it from there, create a directory for your own needs so you can access it very quickly. And it's not very expensive. It's $7 after a 7-day free trial on the iPhone. No iPad version. It'll run as an iPhone app on your iPad. The Mac version is kind of spendy. It's like $30, but I'm happy to spend it if it means that, again, I get a very, very good, full-featured, full-throated music player that will not tamper with my stuff. I actually have a Sony Walkman with a 512 gigabyte micro SD card, and I just simply plug my Walkman into my MacBook, use it as like a mass storage device, and then Doppler simply plays the music and plays playlists off of the storage that's inside there. That's exactly what I want, and I can't believe how frustrated I got when I set up the iPhone 14 Pro and tried to make it a daily driver, when it was just so damn difficult to say, I don't even want you to get the entire library, just this one like 8 gigabyte folder full of stuff. Just let me, nope, you have to import it. No, you have to do this. Like, no, I don't want you to do this. I wish I'd found Doppler back then, because it's exactly what I wanted.
Now I want to combine your pick with Jason's pick and do something for audiobooks that would be the same way, right? So I could, because it is possible to strip the copy protection of audiobooks, but I would like to have them in Dropbox or somewhere, and be able to play them from anywhere, and have the features of audiobooks, which is you stop and you start where you stopped.
Yeah.
You mentioned something a couple of years ago that was a pick, but I don't think it ever really emerged. I've been following it closely, and it never productized. So if somebody ever comes up with one of those, let me know. Alex, Lindsay, before you do your pick of the week, I am going to show you a pick I think you should buy. It's only half an Alex. It's called the Monocle at brilliantmonocle.com, a pocket-sized AR device. It's kind of like, the Google Glass Prism screen, but it's a monocle. And it's hackable because it's open source. So you could hold on. So I don't know. It's just I don't know if anybody makes it. It's open source. It's brilliantmonocle.com, but it is $350. That's why I want you to buy it. And it's 15 grams, 2-hour battery. And you just can, I don't know what you do with it. You can just do something with it.
I think it's something that you have to figure it out. Like it's
it doesn't do anything.
An OS or something to integrate.
It's the Raspberry Pi of monocles, is what it is. So, which we've long needed.
It's so typical of like modern like AR. It's like, hi, we've developed groundbreaking hardware. Please buy it, write software for it, tell us what it's useful for, and then let us use that to hopefully figure out how to sell this thing.
It supports a version of Python called MicroPython that you can use to program it. Nice. Flash your monocle. Anyway, don't flash your monocle. Just do your pick of the week, if you would.
One minor micro pick. I'm testing a new camera. So I've been testing it for the show.
It looks good. What is it?
Yeah. This is the Sony FR7. So they sent me a test unit to play with. So for this week and next week, I'll probably be on it. Haven't done any real color corrections. So this is like just what the camera does when it turns on. It
looks good.
And it really looks good. It's a PTZ.
Yeah.
So I don't have it hooked up yet to the controller. There's a controller for there is a controller for it.
What?
And then there's also, but what's even cooler though is there is an iPad version. So this is an iPad like wireless connected to.
Can you drag your finger and point it and stuff?
When I balance the camera, because I got it last night late and I put it together this morning and I was like, man, as long as it's got an image, I'll make it work.
Ed Pruitt picked this on This Week in Google when they announced it. I think he'd be very interested to hear about your experience with this.
Yeah, it looks again, I've been looking for. It's got the same sensor as the FX6, and I had talked about it early on when it first came out, like going, well, we'll have to see how it turns out. But I'm pretty,
These
pretty
Sony
impressed with it
sensors
so
are
far.
amazing. Yeah, they're really
so it's
good.
a great Sony sensor, and it's full frame sensor, but it's a PTZ, so we can actually control it. What Sony puts on their website about how you're going to use it is cuckoo, in my opinion.
They
I don't know
have
if I would
putting it on a
actually-
jib and then
It's film and it's on a jib, and the thing is that I think that but for a studio, what I'm testing it
Good
for is
for
that I
us.
want to be able to do exactly. I mean, well, if I should bring it up.
How much is it?
Hang on, let me take a big mouthful of water before you tell me this.
With the lens or without the lens, I guess is the question. It might be 10 grand. So anyway, but you would look amazing. You would look amazing, Leo. So anyway,
I just should have one for me, is what you're saying. The rest of you, screw you. Yeah.
Well, you could just use it for that close up. You'd have to figure out the color and everything else.
Yeah.
But anyway, so but I think for studios like TWiT when we do interview things and we want to come in, I wanted to see what it looked like and how hard it is to run and everything else, and it looks pretty good. Anyway, I'm not ready to say it's a pick yet because I literally got it last night.
Oh, I can't wait.
So I'm only going to have it for 2 weeks. Yeah, and then my pick is I was looking for a knot, and I searched for, and I just forgot. I forgot about the. I was looking for a knot that I needed for
A
like
KNOT, for a sailor knot. Okay.
And the thing is that you always know, like when you're doing a bad knot, you always know.
Oh yeah.
I know there's a knot built for this, and I'm not using it, and it's foolish, and I should study it. And so I jumped on the web, and I ended up on this web page, and then I clicked on it, and I realized that I had bought it at some point already because it was just go ahead and download it.
Yes.
This is Grog knots, and I looked at. I realized that after that I'd seen it before, and I'd used it a fair bit years ago, and so I think
even
it's
has
still one of the best
surgical
ones.
knots. If you you ever
it has, it
stuck-
has hundreds of knots.
how to tie
literally
a tie.
hundreds of knots.
It has neckties.
Well, that's a knot. It's a knot.
Oh my God.
And so it's got all, so you can go to the web page, and it has a lot of them on the web page, and you can kind of see every step. I like the fact that they have different colors for the thing, but it actually is just it's very clear. And you should always know what I know, which is that there's always that if you're ever making a knot, somebody thought of it before. Like I guarantee it. Like you think that you're the only one that has ever done that knot, probably not. so there's probably somebody who thought of it sometime, and they thought of it probably 500 years ago, at least a couple hundred years ago. And all those knots are in one place that you can put on your phone or iPad or whatever. And I spent like an hour just digging through this, and then I had 2 pieces of paper. Like I was like, oh, I finally, because I was trying to, anyway.
So if you go to
animatedknots.com,
animatedknots.com, you can see all the different apps they have, and I have this app too. As a matter of fact, it's a great app. Yeah. So, I feel like someday, if I have some time, I should learn some knots.
You just I have all these things that I tied up, and I was like, as I was doing it, I was like, this is stupid. I'm not doing these very well.
There's probably 5 knots. If you knew those 5, you'd be pretty good. I would guess, like a clove hitch and I don't know, half hitch.
Yeah. You got to know your Rodman slip knot. That's the one good.
Hangman's noose. All the important ones.
That's the one where if you're trying to get way too much lumber on the top of your car home from the home center, you basically it's tight. You can dog it down really good, and then it just comes apart with one tug on the right.
So that's how I know you're a man, Andy.
Now, what's that one called?
You know that.
I do admit I have a knot that I do that I haven't found in the app, and it sounds like what you're talking about.
I learned it as the Roadman slip knot as a kid.
Yeah, because I tie green screens in a very specific way, and I can't find it. I can't name it, but what it is I wrap it twice and then go around and through. And if I pull it to the side, it'll just open up again, but it'll hold that green screen forever.
There are class of knots where you're basically the knot is binding on a loop that you've put through the loop, and so that basically once you undo that loop, the whole thing gets free. But my dad and I were like the unlicensed home contractors for like the entire extended family. We would make lots of very, very sketchy trips with very, 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 very ill-advised loads on the top of a car that was not designed for such a thing. And the third time I was found myself on the right side of 128 trying to get a piece of plywood to be centered back on the Dodge. I learned this knot.
Is it this? Is the Roadman slip knot? They just call it a regular everyday slip knot. Is that it? No.
That's not it. No.
That's not it. Okay.
That's a regular slip knot. I'll find it. I'll make it a pick of the week.
Is it the surgical slip tie? You have to wear rubber gloves to do it? I don't know. Is it the non-slip mono knot? I don't know.
See, there's so many options.
There's so many good knots in the world. It's all, topology is what it is. That's what it is.
Yep.
I looked up Roadman's slip knot, and it didn't know that. Maybe if I do trucker's knot.
Could be called something like that.
Because it's kind of,
I have to admit.
Again,
here's
I learned it when I was like,
is that it?
That looks like it.
Yeah, it's a valuable knot, usually used for securing loads or tarpaulins.
Yeah.
It's the trucker's hitch or the trucker's hitch quick release. Maybe you prefer that. All right, now we can spend a whole show. Maybe we should do This Week in Knots, but maybe not.
Everybody interview someone about the knot. It could be like there's a YouTube channel there where you interview freaks and you talk about like, okay, well this is the clove hitch and this goes back to the Phoenicians and the
it's
first
a history
time
of knots.
Referred to it was this and this is what you use.
Where
it for.
do you learn your seamanship, lad?
You got to cut if
that ain't no
on a
sheep
ship.
shank.
You got to cut to a ship. You got to cut to a ship of like how they would use it and they use it on the sail. And I think that would be a great channel.
Alex Lindsay's got a great channel. It's called, and I think maybe there'll be a knot show coming up on officehours.global.
I don't know.
How far can he push it, ladies and gentlemen? Officehours.global is free and open to all. If you go to the website, you'll see all the things they've done and are about to do. And you can
we had
get
Doc Rock on Monday.
Oh, I love Doc Rock. Talking about the new eCam, probably, yes?
He was just talking about communities in general. So he on Monday he mentioned eCam, and talked about it a little bit. But
he's wonderful.
He did great.
Yep. Ruthless Reviews coming up Wednesday.
Yeah, those are fun because you get to just listen to us pick at each other. Like literally, the Ruthless Review is that someone comes on and they say, "Well, the audio is just a little thin," and so as we get better, we push it pretty hard. Yeah.
All sorts of good stuff. Understanding Alpha channels this morning. You can join the Zoom if you want to participate, or you can just watch it after the fact. Best place to start for the whole thing, officehours.global. And, of course, if you want to hire Alex for your next streaming event, 090.media. Andy Ihnatko, when are you going to be on GBH next?
I'm off this week, but I'm on next Friday at 12:30 at the Boston Public Library. You can stream it live or later at wgbhnews.org.
And I must ask you, as I am often told by our fabulous club Twitters, when is Ihnatko.com launching?
Thank you for keeping the
pressure's on.
Yeah, I know. I've got most of the new content actually loaded up. Now I just basically have to decide that whatever the design is, it's the design. I'm not going to be able to change
No more fussing. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
I asked.
Thank you for your interest. It does keep me honest because I'm like, oh God, I know I have to do this. I know I have to make a bunch of decisions and actually wire some things up. And it's like, or I could just stare outside the window. Ooh, look, there's a doggy. Hey, doggy. So yeah, that keeps me working on it. Thank you very much.
And of course, the man with all the colors. Well, at least 6 of them from 6colors.com.
There's only 5 Apple product categories, so I've really got a color to spare if they invent something new.
You're ready. 6colors.com/Jason for all the many various things he does. He wears a coat of many colors. And at Jason Snell on the Twitterverse. Thank you always, Jason. Really appreciate it. Thank you,
Leo.
Alex. Thank you, Andy. Thanks to all of you for joining us. We do MacBreak Weekly on Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, right after iOS Today. You know what? Start your day with Micah and Rosemary, and then continue through with MacBreak Weekly, and then Security Now to wrap it up. And All About Android. Tuesday's a great day for technology on TWiT, live.twit.tv, any time of the day or night to see what's going on. If you're watching live, chat live in our IRC, irc.twit.tv, or on our Club Twit Discord. After the fact, downloadable versions of the show, audio and video, available at twit.tv/MBW. You can also find a YouTube channel dedicated to MacBreak Weekly. In fact, probably the easiest way to do that is go to the TWiT YouTube channel, youtube.com/twit. There's links to all the other shows from there. And maybe the easiest thing of all, subscribe. And that way you'll get it automatically the minute it's available, because it's a podcast. Just get your favorite podcast app and subscribe. There you go. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you being here. We'll see you next time. Now get back to work, because break time is over. Bye-bye.
Oh, hey, that's a really nice iPhone you have there. You totally picked the right color. Hey, since you do use an iPhone and maybe use an iPad or an Apple Watch or an Apple TV, well, you should check out iOS Today. It's a show that I, Micah Sargent, and my co-host Rosemary Orchard host every Tuesday right here on the TWiT network. It covers all things iOS, tvOS, HomePodOS, watchOS, iPadOS. It's all the OSs that Apple has on offer, and we love to give you tips and tricks about making the most of those devices, checking out great apps and services, and answering your tech questions. I hope you check it out.